Three, two, one, and hey everybody. Thanks for tuning in to another week of my Saturday 9 p.m. Pacific time streams. This is the 48th week in a row that I've been doing these, so the entire year basically, since January 2nd, every Saturday. Hoping I got at least another 4 in me to get to the full 52 to get a year in. And I think quite a bit further from that, we'll see. I guess it depends how this project goes. I'm enjoying it still, definitely. I'm also planning at the end of these 52 streams to put it up public. This browser web desktop that I'm working on, the desktop environment in the browser, web desktop, web OS, whatever you choose to call it, want to call it. And yeah, this is a live stream, by the way, so feel free to throw in a live comment if you want, or if you're checking this out after the fact, then feel free to throw a comment in there in the chat, or not in the chat, sorry, in the comment section, the YouTube comment section. You know, comments, criticisms, concerns, anything like that. And also, if you like the videos, you like the past videos, you like the idea, you like this one, feel free to press like. Give me the old thumbs up button. And if you want to motivate me, you want to keep track of these videos, you want to see if I'm posting any other stuff, then you should probably subscribe. It's like I said, keeps me motivated, and it's just a good idea all around. I recommend it to everybody. Today powered by the watermelon Red Bull, so that's gonna get us along today. This is the 355 milliliter one, so that'll get me an extra 105 milliliters along. Yeah, let's just jump into it. So I'm going to switch over to the browser here and get a peek at where we are right now with the version. I think I added quite a few little things this episode. We'll take a look at what I did in my branch notes here. Kind of just sporadically did stuff, and it's all over the place, so we'll have to go through it a little bit. But yeah, this is the basic OS. I kind of randomly demo it every time. It's evolving all the time. Got the shadow effect in there now in the start menu. Got lots of cool little apps. I'm going to add some extra apps today. I think one of the apps I was going to add is like developer tools. We're going to have like a developer tools kind of thing using something I found called Aruda. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. The website looks a little weird, but if you click here and you go to trigger, you see here that this little thing is not DevTools. This is like their custom version of DevTools that they made. That actually looks pretty decent, and I've decided I'm gonna just use it and have it like an app within my app, so it'll be almost like the users can access DevTools on the mobile browser or just in general without actually pressing F12 and going into DevTools. It's not quite as powerful as the normal DevTools, and we got all other sorts of other stuff. As far as files that I kind of work on in between streams, the public files that aren't part of the repo, I've been curating, such as my blog. So now my blog is a little more organized here, you see. And then I've just got some main posts here, and then I've got a travel folder that I've kind of organized as well. And I've got all the pictures fixed as well, so every one of my blog posts has correct pictures now. Oh, these are bad examples. None of those have photos, those ones. Let's say this one here, yeah, so you can see there's a photo there. And I've got it when you click my blog post that it opens the photos in like the photo app. So it kind of keeps the experience there that you're still in the app kind of. And this is like a thumbnail version versus a full-size version. You can go full screen on it, zoom in, all that fancy stuff. That's me in Vietnam there. Oh, that's a nice feature. I think we fixed this today already. Let's make a note of it anyways. But we got a lot of fixes we're going to apply today. Let's just note for next stream right now that closing photo app crashed it. Yeah, crashed everything really. But one of the first changes we're actually going to do is we're going to switch away from React 18 that's in beta. I was experimenting with it last week, and it's currently the main React library, but I noticed some other little bugs with it that I've decided to just switch back. So yeah, let's just jump into it here and get to my branch here. I've got 50 commits, but I'd say at least 10 of them probably we can skip, if not more. Some of them are like me daily upgrading the dependencies and just kind of seeing if anything needed tweaking there, but well, let's play around with it anyways. Let's take a look at the first thing I fixed today. Oh boy, this one's minor. Selecting is optional with read-only mode. I think this literally was breaking the build, actually, because I forgot to put this as optional. So the TypeScript was saying, "Hey, you didn't specify this somewhere." I don't recall where, but anyways, this is supposed to be like that. So this is first commit of the day is going to be one of the most minor commits I've ever done as a first commit. It's just adding a question mark. And I guess we got to add it in the right place. Basically right there. We could even do a test here just to make sure. So if I do a yarn build, and if I spell build correctly, that will fail at some point, and then it's going to be that I just have to make this optional. Well, this build is about to fail here. Let's just quickly take a look at the next commit, because that one's so minor. This one I think I was interested in. What is this one here? Truncate, performance, and 3-line improvements. Yeah, this one I was kind of proud of. So if we go to the code here and we look at some of the blog entries currently, users, where the heck are my blog entries? Documents, blog posts, here. So you see this one here, so much news, and then you got the ML part as the third line. I don't want any third lines when I haven't selected them. When I click them, they expand the text, and it'll show you the full name, and then it's okay if it's 3 lines. But otherwise, they're all supposed to be 2 lines. And I had some code in there that I thought was kind of clever, but it was failing me whenever there's spaces that was causing line breaks, because I wasn't accounting for those. I was just kind of counting the characters. So you can see here in a few scenarios it failed. Also, speaking of failure, there's the build failing. So I'm going to add that question mark and we'll rerun the build. And just while that's rerunning, let's get into the fix here for that other one. So for the performance, well, let's skip what the performance piece is first. Let's just see how I adjusted it. Probably we'll just apply this patch. Yeah, I actually got rid of, before I was replacing spaces with non-breaking spaces as like a hack that didn't really perfectly work, but it was a little bit better sometimes. But I've gotten rid of that. I got rid of the non-breaking space thing. Oh, I should get rid of the constant too. I actually forgot to delete that. Don't need it anymore. But what did I change here? Right, this was one thing. This truncate name was running way too often. I've moved this over to be memoized, so that it's only when one of these attributes change, then it recalculates the truncated text name and how exactly to fit. So there's 2 lines with ... That being said, when I say exact, it's not actually correct, because what I do is I figure out what 2 lines will be, and then I just delete the last 3 characters and turn those into dots. But the 3 characters are a little bit wider than the dots. So if I did have ... at the end, I could just delete 2 characters and do ... depending on what the characters are, you know? If it's an L, then that is similar in width to a dot. But if it's an M, you could delete one M is almost like 3 dots, as far depending if the font is like, in the case with this font, that's how it is. So anyways, it's not completely perfect yet, but this works, at least for giving me 2 lines. So that was the one thing I did there, was cache this. I don't think this changed at all. No, that stayed the same. I just cached it and no longer replacing the line breaks there. So the real change was right here. Ah, yes, I basically just made a thing to calculate the line breaks. So what was the logic here? I think I also reworded this line count to be line index, because it wasn't really accurate to call that line count. So ignoring these changes and these changes, because that's just the word changes, here's the meat and potatoes. Before, I would say, hey, if the line width is greater than the maximum line width accepted, just push it onto the next line. But now what I'm doing is I'm figuring out, oh, you know, these characters actually should also have been on the next line. So how am I calculating this? I take the text of the line, I split it into its spaces to count how many spaces. So that's how many spaces there are in the line. So that's how many words there should be. You know, if there's 1 space, then there's 2 words. If there's 2 spaces, there's 3 words up there in the first line. Then I say the line with words. What do I do there? I take the words, which I calculate here at the start by taking the text, the real text, and splitting it into all of its words based on spaces. And then what do I do here? Oh, and then I say, assuming that there were this many words, this many spaces, so let's say 1, we get the words from 0 to 1, so that would give us 2 words. And I join those together. So basically, I try to recreate what the first line would be to fit those many spaces without cutting off any of the words. So then what do we do here? So I only do this for the first line. So if there's only 1 line, and that line does not equal the line with words, so assuming the line had both words and it's not what the final line is, then that means that that second word needs to move to the next line, basically. Or that last word, I should say. Which is what I do here, basically. So I take the first line and I make it just whatever the amount of words are that we're able to stay on there. Yeah, so let's say just the first word then, because the second word got cut off, let's say. So we just put the first word on the first line, and then we move the rest of the text, the space, I guess. We move the space too? Yeah, we move the space and whatever the other part of the word was onto the next line. I think that's correct, yeah. So that, yeah, because this is the length line with words. Slice. What is this line with words length? Line text. Okay, yeah, so I slice it there. So yeah, what trying to think this out, it doesn't, the way I worded it is confusing a little bit, but what I explained is how it works, is that it sees, okay, if one of the words, whatever your last word was on the first line, if that's going to be cut off, then just move it on to the next line. Anyway, so this is how you calculate word wrap. And the reason why I have to calculate word wrap is because I'm using a canvas with measured text to get the exact measurements. Anyways, let's apply this patch. I think we've discussed it enough. And you'll see that it improves the text rendering, so that 3-line stuff is gone. So I downloaded the patch file off GitHub. Oh wait, did the build still fail? Oh wait, the builds, sometimes the Next.js builds fail now when dev is running. But I think in general it was going to pass because it didn't give us an error at the same point. So let me just commit that change because that one's done. That commit was called the selecting is optional with read-only mode. Right, so that was supposed to be optional. This build is going to succeed now. And in another terminal, I'm going to prepare that git apply command. Git apply the patch. I'm just going to drag onto my terminal and have it paste in the path. Make sure my build's completed here. Well, it's pretty much completed. Let's just commit this. Wait, well, 3, 2, 1, built. No, I was off by a second. Okay. There we go. So let's commit this first one and also make a note of that we added our first commit of the day there. And what was the next one that I had worded it? Truncate, performance, and 3-line problem. So that's what we're going to paste here when we apply the next patch. It applied without a problem, which is nice to see. As we start to deviate from the patch and from the code that I've already changed, some of our patches might have run into a few headaches here and there. We'll see. So I think we've already kind of discussed the changes. Let's just see how it looks, see if it's improved. So we go back to that blog folder. And there we go. Now everything's properly 2 lines with nothing being cut off improperly. Same here. Same on every page. It's now properly doing the 2-line truncation that I want with the ... dots. And when you click it, it'll show you the full thing. And presumably it's more performant now that it's memoized as well. I need to get a little bit better at benchmarking, I think, because I've been doing a lot of performance tweaks, or, I mean, I guess that gets into why I need these benchmarks, is that it's debatable what you call a performance improvement if you don't measure it, you know? Got a message here from Abrar that's here every week. Add Doom. I have Doom, actually. That's a funny one. I have Doom. Maybe you mean like Doom 3, like the modern one, but I do have the classic Doom. That's the one game I actually have had as my proof of concept for a while. This is just via DOS emulator. So I can play any kind of DOS game. We could get Doom 2 on here as well. And then as far as if you're talking about the more modern Doom, that actually is possible as well. I feel like that's already been requested once. But there is a Doom WebAssembly one here. Not Web Doom. Doom 3. That's what it was called. Doom 3. That was the one where people are like, oh, wow, you have that running in the browser? So it actually can run Doom 3 as well. This is Doom 3 running. The little... Oh, yeah, it's kicking in here. It looks like it has a big file to download. I have pretty quick internet, but I don't know how fast it's serving that thing to me. So Doom 3 is another one we could possibly add on there. This gets back to the having to put a lot of files together, kind of. Well, sorry, no, what I meant to say was it's too big of it's just a huge file. It's like hundreds of megabytes. That's the one problem. Versus this Doom game is like 1 megabyte. Another suggestion here from him is add Minecraft. Yeah, that's another one I've seen. There's like a Minecraft online website. Minecraft Classic, that's what it is here. I could just do an iframe to this page. I've seen some people do the iframes to this page because they've already got it figured out here. But yeah, I'm basically in Minecraft here in the browser, and I haven't played much Minecraft myself, so I don't know how accurate it is. But I could put this in an iframe. I mean, and yeah, I'm not against the iframes, but I like the fact that I can run things client side, and this needs internet, I would assume. I mean, my page needs internet too, but only well, I was gonna say only the first time, but I don't really have a PWA type of thing yet where it can be in an offline mode, so I still need internet too, I guess. Okay, back to the code here. So we just committed the truncate performance thing and the 3-line problem. Let's move on to the next thing. Fix truncate for names with no spaces. What does that mean? Oh, I also forgot, darn it. There was another piece I was going to do to this truncate change involving the spaces. What was it called? Space underscore breaking, non-breaking. Here we go. Yeah, and the constants here, there's that non-breaking space, which I think is totally not used now. Where is it here? Non-breaking space. There it is. Is that used anywhere? Nope, not by me. Okay, let's get rid of it. Simple commit. Don't need non-breaking space. For now. Another request from Abrar, Sonic Mania. I feel like you suggested Sonic Mania before. But okay, cool. I'll write that one down. I'll write Sonic Mania and the Minecraft idea. Like I said, I have Doom, Sonic Mania, and Minecraft. Added to the notes as well. Thank you, Abrar. All right. So that was a quick little commit just because I remembered. Looks like there was another change I did here. Darn it. I wish I had realized I needed to do this. What is this? Fix truncate for names with no spaces. Ah, yes. I think this was a bug I just realized. Names with no spaces. If it's too long... What does that mean, names with no spaces? What's the use case for this failing on me? Oh, here's one. Yeah, that doesn't look right. So if it's too long, it just goes ... Is that what's happening? Oh, yeah. Okay. Let's fix that. That's wrong. So the fix looked pretty simple enough. Just changing that line right there on the file entry functions. Let's go do that. File entry functions. What was it? Line 3 something or other. Here, I think it was. Yeah. Was it? Yeah. Okay. So spaces in line is greater than 0. Yeah. If there's no spaces in the line and it's the first line, don't go mess with it. Because, yeah, this code is meant for spaces logic. Okay, yeah, that's fixed now. That's back to normal. And our triple truncate thing is still okay. Let's just double check that. Users, public, documents, blog posts. Yeah, those are still good too. Okay, so that is an improved truncate. Probably should have done it that way from the start. But, hey, we're learning as we go here. Truncate commit number 3. These should literally be like a subcategory of the one I just did. Okay, let's look ahead a little more this time. Fix pointer text selection for rename. Okay, I remember this one. Fix truncate for names. Yeah, I just did that. Right, so this pointer select here, right, I think last episode I changed pointer events to none. Why? Ah, because on drag here, so this drag effect here, when I'm dragging, you can't really see it, but you see the box that appears over my PC. It's not flickering, but that's because of me disabling the pointer events. Before, when I would move the cursor from the text to the icon, there would be a slight moment of flicker because it was triggering a pointer event, basically. And I can demonstrate that here by removing that. Which one was it here? File entry one, I think it was. We'll remove it from there. And now you'll see when I drag. Yeah, there you go. You can see that little bit of a flicker there where it kind of turns off for a second. That's happening again now without the pointer events. And then the final change to fix that was adding it into the JavaScript side of things. Oops, let me just open the wrong file. That will help nobody ever. Line 272. Man, some of these files are getting big. It gets a little hard to wrangle the complexity at a certain point. There we go. So just on that figure, the place that was causing that little twitch, I'm gonna say that if we're in like, wait, what is this for renaming? Wait a minute then. If we're okay. Right. So I'm okay with pointer events none, but when we're renaming, it was causing an issue because it wouldn't change the cursor to be the text cursor and it wouldn't let me pick a specific point in the input box. So now I'm just saying I've moved the pointer event none into the JavaScript and I've said if it's renaming, I need my pointer events. I got another one from Albert here. Dead trigger. I've never heard of dead trigger. I'm just gonna write that down and we're gonna look that up later. But thank you. That's that one is, and it sounds interesting. I've never played that game. Can this be one line? I feel like it could be. Nope. Prettier says no. Oh wait, no, it's okay with it now. Yeah, that looks better as one line. Okay, so now if everything's right, we should be able to drag without the twitch. Yeah, we're not getting the twitch. But when we rename, now I can, yeah, now I have the proper text field so that I can click properly. So that was a nice little minor fix. I actually really like fixing those little things because that's the polish. And that's why every time I do one of those little fixes, it's like, yes. Because almost every site, no matter how top end it is in the whole world, basically, Amazon, Facebook, you mention it. At least me as a developer, there's certain things where I notice where it's like, oh, okay, yeah, that's a little weird or that's a little glitchy sometimes. 1 in a million, 1 in 1,000. Probably if somebody could put resources into that, it could be fixed, and it would be a little more polished, the experience. But Facebook being a big company or whoever it happens to be in the example, don't necessarily have time for it, or it just hasn't been reported, or they don't know about that. So it gets it kind of just slips between the cracks for a while. But that's why I like with my app, when I run into these bugs, I know, oh, okay, that's something that's not going to slip through the cracks. I now know that there's a bug there, and I'll investigate that. So that's pretty much what I've been doing here, and that's why I have a million red notes over there, because those are the bugs. Okay, let's close these, and let's move on. Fix pointer text. Yeah, I did a lot of minor stuff here. Only adjust pointer events on icon view. Oh, man. How many times am I changing this darn thing? I got to start looking ahead at my commits here. Right, okay. So this is better, I guess. Wait, what is the difference here? Only adjust pointer events on icon view. Oh, okay. So this pointer events none was specifically for the icon view. And by changing it into code here and making it all the time, it was happening for the other views as well, which was causing the hover effect that I wanted to not happen properly in the list. So yes, that is another change we have to make to the same thing I just changed. I guess it allows people to see the evolution of code, but it can also seem a bit tedious when I could have just done it right the first time now, doesn't it? Go change that back that we had before. Styled file entry, it's called. Yes, the icon view. Is it? Icon view, yes. It was right here. So we're going to put that back, and we're going to have this here, but only to say that pointer events, we need those pointer events back when we're renaming. Otherwise, leave it up to the CSS. Leave it up to the styling. Replace Doom with a Super Nintendo emulator system version. Interesting idea, Abrar. I'd like to hear the reasoning behind why. On that note, though, I actually do have a proof of concept of a Super Nintendo / Nintendo emulator. It's based on a pretty interesting one. I'm just trying to find where it is here. I have a huge list of emulators. Bayous. Here we go. This guy here, Bayou Web. And this is probably the best of the emulators I've seen because this actually supports Sega Genesis, Super Nintendo, and NES, and the NES. All from one emulator, one WebAssembly file, and it's not a huge file, and it's also one of the most performant emulators. So I will probably add that at some point, but I think I mentioned this last episode that whenever you're tiptoeing around the Segas and Nintendos of the world, that's where I get more worried about the copyrights and about putting anything on my page that could cause an issue there. I know one good example is the PlayStation emulator. I think those emulators actually require some kind of copyrighted thing to properly work. Whereas the Super Nintendo ones, I don't know if they do. I think it's a reverse engineered emulator, and they are open source, but I'm not 100% sure even on those. And that's why I don't intend to include any ROMs that would be illegal. I'm just going to have some shareware DOS stuff and other open source software that I can find, or iframe stuff perhaps. But anyways, I'm going to tiptoe around that line as much as I can. Let's commit this fix here. I just wanted to get the wording for it. Only adjust pointer events on icon view. Yes. All right, let's just commit this. I haven't learned my lesson yet. I should look at what the next commit is. I probably got another one. There we go. Let's see what I just changed about what I just changed now. Nothing. Okay, so here's our first upgrade. Looks like this one was minor enough. What I'm going to do for the upgrades, I'm going to batch them all together right now. So we're going to just look for them. So, and we're going to ignore the package. Well, no, let's not ignore package JSON. And let's just make sure it's just upgrades. Okay, that's just dev and dev dependency things changing there. Yarn lock, we can completely ignore. So one thing I think with the unicorn rules changed and this became a default, there's no await expression member. And I was not a fan of that rule, so I'm going to go into ESLint. Unicorn is like just a set of rules for ESLint, just to try to make it more strict. I'm always trying to make my ESLint rules as strict as possible, just so that my editor doesn't really allow me to make any mistakes, or what it calls mistakes, you know. If there's some preferred way and it can be written in that way where some opinion could say that is the preferred way to do it, I'd prefer that than just winging it. So for that reason alone, I love linting. Okay, so that's the first ESLint rule I just changed right there. Back to the browser here, we're going to, let's see what other upgrades we can find. Upgrade. Looks like I got 3 of them at least. Here's another package upgrades. Here's another package upgrade. And here's me going back to React 17. That's also me messing with the packages. Is there any other times where I say the word package? Package upgrades, package upgrades. Yeah, we just caught those 2. I think we got them all. Upgrade, upgrade. Yeah, it looks like it was just those 3 plus me changing React. So let's look at these other ones here. This one also is extremely minor. That's me switching. That's just, yeah, that's an extremely minor one. Not even worth talking about. Close that one. This one also looks pretty minor. Nothing new there. No rules changed. Okay. And then this is me going back to React 17. So let's do those things then. Let's get our packages upgraded now. Yarn outdated. See what we have outdated now, and we'll upgrade everything. Actually, let's just do one other peek too to make sure there's no like any other linting stuff. Lint. Style. No, okay. Looks like this is probably the end for package stuff, so let's do it right now. Yarn upgrade -- latest. And sometimes this command will actually take my React 18 and move it back to 17. So if that happens, I'll be like, all right, that's what I wanted. We shall see. The suspense. Oh, the suspense. Come on. There we go. That wasn't too long. Now let's run a yarn ESLint right away. Now that we know we had those linting rules we had to adjust. Let's see what changed here. Framer motion. So React's gone back to 17. I'm okay with that. This is still... I have a note here where it's like things that happen in React 17, because there's one bug that happens in 17 that doesn't happen in 18, but I found 2 bugs that happen in 18 that don't happen in 17. So I'm going to go back to 17 for now until 18 is ready for release, and then I'll move to 18 and try to figure out what's left for bugs. And I might try to fix this thing happening in 17 at some point, but it's very minor. Okay, so that's all the updates. The ESLint stuff looks like that's okay. Do a quick style int here and see if anything changed on that front. Otherwise, I think this is our package upgrades. Okay, good. Simple. Package upgrades. So presumably we don't have to look back on that one. I just jinxed myself there by saying that, though. Something's going to explode with it now. Okay. Done. Done. Where were we then? We just did this one. Clear focusing if blurring everything. Huh. How can I recreate this to prove that I'm actually fixing something here? I think I decided that this maybe is not necessary. I haven't actually run into the bug that this fixes. This was from last episode where I did kind of I wouldn't call it a hack, but I'm not necessarily sure I'm proud of this. I almost wonder if I should change this to a ref. Although, no, I only want this in one context. It's tricky because this is React. But rather than use context, because the state changes were slowing things down, I've actually just put an array outside of the, just like in the global context, basically, of that module. And I'm accessing it from there. So every instance of a file entry is accessing the same array. But in the case of focusing, that's okay because you can only really focus on one thing in one place at one time. And the idea of clearing, I think, was that somehow it wasn't getting cleared. Let's just leave that alone. That's a fix for something that hasn't happened yet. So let's ignore that. Add help. Here we go. This was a fun one to do. Yeah, I think I'm just going to paste this as is, and then I believe this does evolve later, but we'll do some patches as this one evolves. This was mostly, oh, what I just pressed. This was mostly just boilerplate of me, not boilerplate, copy and paste, I would say, of some of the help sections. Oh no, I didn't do the ESLint thing yet. Darn it. Okay, let's commit those package upgrades. I thought I did, honestly. I feel like I pressed the commit button and nothing happened. Super Meat Boy. I got another suggestion here from Abra. Super Meat Boy. Okay. The list of game suggestions you've gotten me are getting big. On another note, I'm actually in the future going to be updating the documentation and working better with the GitHub discussions. And I'm going to consolidate this to like game requests section, and I'll put the ones you requested in here. They won't go forgotten, I promise you. I mean, none of the show notes are ever going to go forgotten. I mean, it's on the YouTube streams. Plus, I have all these notes here that are actually in the app themselves, so anyone will be able to reference them from there. Okay, let's get to this other thing, which was the added help, basically, the help functions to the terminal. I have a terminal that I made over the last couple episodes, I think. I think it was a couple episodes now I've been making this terminal. So you see here, I already had a help section, I guess. Yeah. It was basically just printing nothing before. Oh, wait a minute. Did I already do this last episode? I don't remember doing this, but it looks like I did. I already had this help file. Oh, okay. I forgot I did that. I guess perhaps last episode I was already starting to work on the help file. But what I've done is I've changed this to more of like a generic help function where you can pass the information to it. So you can pass what commands you want to work with help on. So yeah, this I just made more generic, and it only prints aliases if they are passed in. That's the first piece of that, and then in the Git and in the command interpreter, I made separate help sections. So for Git, we got two help commands here, the checkout one and the clone one. And yeah, now the help here, instead of just saying git help, I run that same help command where you pass in the terminal and the commands. And then for the command interpreter, I do the same thing, but instead of doing help, now I pass in the terminal and the commands, and now we can reuse help in other places for other apps. This part stayed the same. This is just a list of commands along with their descriptions. Most of them are copy-pasted from other terminals. I've got a message here from Lightbook. Hello, Dustin. Hey, Lightbook. Thanks for tuning in and checking it out. Let's do a demo here of my terminal while you happen to be swinging by. What's happened here? Since we did a package upgrade, I'm going to kill Next.js dev environment. I'm going to start it up again because sometimes after you do upgrades, it goes a bit silly. Let's try another refresh and see if it's a little more cooperative now. And then what we're going to do is we're going to open up my terminal that I've made using various packages and various things, and we're going to check how the help commands are looking for Git and for just the general help. Here we go. I think it's finally loading, but who knows? There we go. Jeez, took some time. So here's my terminal. We're going to do some work on the terminal today as well, a little bit of it. So if I type help, we still got our generic help commands that we recognize, and now if I type git help, we get the git help commands. And I also noticed that there's this part's all messed up right now. That is gibberish wrong. That it's supposed to be, because I pressed enter, it's supposed to have cleared there. There's the git help anyways. That's separate from this other bug going on. We fixed that bug today. But there's the help. I've demoed the help. I feel like we probably fix the bug next because I think I was working on the help and I ran into that bug and it bothered me. So let's see what the next thing is. That was package upgrades. We did those. Switch back to React 17. We did that. Fix browser crashing on closing and loading. When do I get to the terminal stuff? Okay, so I do some changes to the terminal. I don't know when I fixed the terminal, but we will get there. Because, yeah, that looked wrong, but we'll get back to that. Let's see what this next one is here. So, fix browser crashing. Yeah, I think the browser was causing me some issues if I opened an HTML file from the browser. So in my blog posts here, I have these WHTML files for the WYSIWYG editor, but I can also just make them HTML and open them in my browser. So you see that opens in the browser now, but if I close it, it actually worked. If I open it, close it. Maybe the issue was if you go to a web page, then if you open up the HTML. How do I recreate that issue? I think it was you go to the browser, then I switch to the HTML? No. Okay, I remember how it is now. It's a little confusing. You have to open up the HTML, then in the address bar, change to a non-HTML page, then close it. Huh. I didn't just apply the patch. What's going on here? How come it's working now? Because I think the logic of fixing this actually made sense. But at the same time, I'm not having the problem anymore, which is interesting. Maybe we'll have to move this fix to next episode. Hey, if it ain't happening... Oh, there we go. Now it happened right away. That's weird. So from a fresh refresh, opening the HTML and closing it. All right, that's crashing it. Good. Good, I guess. I don't know why I didn't the first time, but whatever. So let's get that patch that fixes that, and then we'll take a peek at it so we can understand what I did. What did past Dustin do, and why are we following what he did? If it doesn't make sense, we won't do it. Let's see here. So I've added a state to keep track of the current URL within the page. And instead of just the hook, every time that the history or position changes, it was just changing the URL. Now I'm only doing that. I think the key here is the if process. Because when you close it, the process might not exist anymore. It might have been causing a React issue. That could have been what was going on. Because yeah, I wonder, but why would the process even be triggered here? Oh, maybe because set URL. No. Because that's... Huh. It's a little intriguing how this fixed it. Let's confirm it fixed it, I guess, first. It's pretty minor. Hey, if it fixed it, great, but I can't remember why that was the fix exactly. So we open it, and we close it. All right, well, that seems to have fixed it. I mean, definitely in the past, I've had this issue where you have to check sometimes that process still exists, because when you close the app and it first deletes the process, that can sometimes trigger a state update, and it tries to do something while that's update's occurring. Sorry, I'm just getting some random spam in my channel. Report them, but I don't know why I've been getting spam lately. It's so frustrating. Okay, so this fixes it. We also compare to make sure we're not loading the same URL again. I guess that is a little more efficient, so sure, why not? And I believe this change was for a similar thing, where if you went from the browser on like Google to HTML, there was like a transition point where the background color was changing. So I've decided to just keep the background color white for the browser. And then I made this cool radial gradient that actually matches the Chrome generic about blank page. I might in the future recreate that about blank page, because I've also found the dinosaur game that you can play, the jumping dinosaur game. I can actually put that in my app as well. So I might make it like a generic Chrome browser page. Until then, though, background's white, the end. So this fixed it. I'm just going to commit this and just move on. We could spend all day trying to understand every little piece, every little line. If someone can understand it and wants to post a comment, that's always helpful. Not that that wasn't understood, but I don't know if I described it adequately. Adjust selection detection with scroll position. Right, this was an annoying one. Where my selection here, let's say we're here. So this here is the selector, But if I was scrolling down, I fixed this, so the selector part was right, but it still wasn't doing the collision right. So you see here it doesn't... Wait a minute, that actually worked. There we go. In this case, it doesn't detect any of them. Oddly enough, when I go downward, it does, but going upward, it wasn't. And I think that that's just coincidence that worked. I think that's just the positioning. If the scroll bar had been bigger and I could have gone further down, then it wouldn't have worked in either direction. But we have a patch for it. It's my recollection is it was not super hard. It's the same kind of thing that fixed the visual aspect of it, because visually I wasn't accounting for scroll top. Basically, wherever the scroll position of the relevant container was. And now I do. So now I'm calculating for scroll top as well. Let's ignore this because that's wrong. So now when it's calculating the bottom or one of the collision positions, it just has to add scroll top. That was basically the concern. Let's take a peek at it and make sure it is fixed. So now, there we go. Now it's selecting that in whatever direction you go. It now can properly detect the collisions. So that's it for that commit. Adjust selection detection with scroll position. Correct. Oh, did I miss a commit in between this? I feel like I snuck a commit in there. Where it says I have 10 now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8. I think I forgot to update a couple here. Where was I? Package upgrades. This one here, fix browser crashing on close. I think I forgot to note that. There we go. Sneak that one in there. Package upgrades / React 17. Go to React 17. Go back to. And adjust selection detection with scroll position. Okay, great. So those 10 commits are in. And that puts us on to don't refresh on delete. Yes, this was an important one from a performance point of view. If you see here, let's say I delete this here. Delete. You see that flicker? That is not necessary, that flicker. So we're just going to get rid of that. I'm going to reset the cache here. I'm just going to export that commit as a patch. Oh, it's super simple, it looks like, too. It's like just a couple lines. Oops, I didn't want to switch to that. There we go. Git apply the commit. Let me just get its wording here again. Again with these spammer people. What do you guys, what's the goal there? Don't refresh on delete. So yeah, it was just a matter of removing this basically. That I think I added that thinking I needed it, but I don't recall the use case yet where I actually did need that. So we're just going to not refresh when things are deleted, and instead we're just going to delete it the old-fashioned way until further notice. It doesn't, visually it looks better, so I don't know why I was refreshing. It's like a lazy way to do it. Not lazy, it's unnecessary. Paste URL via drag drop. Right, this was a fun one. I mean, it's minor enough, but I'd actually forgotten that it was something the console could do, even though I'm doing it right now, even here with patch. As an example, I'll show you right now. So I type git apply, and then I take an icon from my desktop, I drag it into my terminal, and when I drop it, it printed the path there. That's basically what I'm going to add to my terminal. So same idea. Let's just see where we started with it here. So it used to be called paste clipboard. Now I call it paste to terminal. And here, instead of paste clipboard, I actually just used that clipboard command I was getting. I made a function called get clipboard text. That's basically the same here as where's get clipboard text? Here it is. It's a very simple command. It's just running the navigator clipboard read text, same as I had before with the paste clipboard now, but I've generically made it paste terminal, and you pass in the data now, so that I could do other kind of pastings into the terminal. So then Control V now, paste clipboard. This is paste clipboard here. And then the new one is this one here. When the URL changes, right? Because this is another container component of mine. And I have a generic thing where all container components have the drag drop ability. And when you drop onto it, it changes the URL of the process. And for the terminal, the URL of the process doesn't really matter because I maintain my own internal current directory state, which is what is relevant. So I can use URL detection as a method of knowing, oh, you've pasted something in. That being said, I'm not sure if it'll work if I were to drop the same exact file twice. That's another issue that I've actually got. I think I've got a note about that. Yeah, I think I have a note about that one. That one's still kind of causing me some issues. Do I? The singleton thing. You know, I don't really. I'm going to make a note of that. Let me make a note of that, actually, because I don't think I have a good note of that. Well, let me test it first, I guess, but let's make a note of what I think doesn't work, is singletons don't change URLs for same URL. Actually, I think I might have fixed that, honestly. I think I literally... Hopefully I'm back momentarily here. Just going to see if I'm streaming again. Looks like, yes, I'm back, hopefully. I'm just waiting for it to load. Here we go. So I'm seeing myself now. Sorry, everybody. I dropped off. My OBS did its bi-weekly freezing that sometimes happens, which is unfortunate. Let's get back to it, because I was on a roll here. What was I doing? I don't even remember. We got to get our browsers back and set up. I was doing the pasting. I wanted to do a pasting test and demonstrate that, I believe. Let's see here. So now we have a terminal and we drag something on and drop it. There we go. It pasted the URL. And now to test my theory, I want to try dropping it on the same thing. Yeah, it didn't change there. But a new URL does. Okay, so currently that theory is correct, where I made a note here that my singletons aren't changing URLs for the same URL. That needs fixing at the moment, but we'll get back to that because I think I did fix that. Got a message here from Himanshu Thakur saying hello, Dustin, and a peace symbol. Hi, Himanshu. Nice to see you. Thank you for coming and check out my stream. Okay, let's. What was I on here then? What was I doing? Right, the paste operation. So I'm noticing still that other terminal bug where it's the bottom line is messed up. I'm pretty sure I fixed that, so we'll get to that pretty soon. Because this one here doesn't even have the word terminal in it, and this is all about the terminal, so I don't know which commit message I had. I need to get better at my commits having like keywords in them so that I can find what I did. Paste URL by a drag drop. It's a cool feature. That's actually a really handy feature. I'm going to end up using that, I think, a lot in the future when I'm doing more terminal stuff. Hopefully I do more. I'm really adding terminal stuff all the time. It's fun. YouTube thumbnails. This was another cool one. And this is a cool one too because another thing I've done in my curating my data is I now have the videos folder now. So if we go here to my videos folder, you'll see now I've got my tech gear and my being a software developer. Wait a minute. I'm missing a key folder here. What happened to it? Did I delete it in my random examples and stuff? I might have just deleted it and I need to refresh. Okay. No. Somehow I've deleted it from my main files, which is unfortunate because I did not want that to occur. Yeah, there's supposed to be another folder in there, but it looks like it got deleted. Very weird. I'm almost certain that I didn't think I deleted it, but here we are. I'm just going to see if I have it in another backup here that I just did the day before, but I don't. Huh, I'm going to have to redo those blog posts, I guess. Where did they go? Did I not have them like right here a minute ago? No, my blog posts, yes, but my videos, all my streaming videos were here, are now gone. Ugh, that's frustrating. I gotta go hunt for them at a later date. Because I did not have them backed up, of course. Oh, I do have another folder. This also is not where I had it backed up. Okay, they're gone. Well, let's just use these few examples here. So there's 4 examples. I want to make these have thumbnails based on their YouTube link. But there used to be another folder in here that I made that had all 40 plus of these streams, 47 of them. I'm going to have to regenerate those. Or, wait a minute. I think I've decided that I want to commit those. Yes. I decided I wanted to commit those. So those are now part of the repo. So I think we're going to commit those in the near future. That's what it is. Yes. Because my being a software developer and my tech gear videos, those are more mine. Those will be on my dustinbrett.com domain. But the videos of me making this app, I feel like those make sense to be in the repo. So those are in the repo. Right. Got a message here from Eric Zetterson. I enjoy watching your workflow, specifically how you review and apply commits. Seems efficient, and now I want to try it. Cool. Happy to hear that. Yeah. I mean, it's other than these kind of streams, I'm not sure if there's a lot of opportunities where people would want to do it the way that I do it, where you kind of make commit to a branch for a week, and then you come back to your main branch and like kind of pick them one by one and massage them and explain them and kind of re-rationalize them to yourself. But that's how I end up doing it with the streams, as a way to kind of present them, but at the same time have something a little bit pre-baked, so that I'm not just umming and ahhing for 3 hours. So yeah, happy to have you, Eric. Thank you. And we'll add these extra folders in a bit. Let's first look at the thumbnail, because that's a cool little piece of it. The reason I wanted the bigger folder is because then you get to see 47 thumbnails and it looks kind of cool. You can kind of see the only difference is like my shirt and the amount of post-its in the background, but they're tiny little thumbnails, so you can barely notice. Anyways, let's add this thing. Let's stop hyping it and let's add it. I haven't already exported this. So like Eric was saying, I create these patches from GitHub just by adding it to the URL. I save that with Control S and Enter. Ooh, I do some random clicks. Then I move over to my code, open up a terminal. I type git apply, and then I drag the file in, and then I just press Enter. And then just like that, we have all the commits, and we can kind of look through the diffs together and try to figure out what the heck's going on. Eric Zetterson, totally agree. Thanks for sharing. Cool. Nice. So let's take a peek at this one here. So in the video player, I've decided to export this function I had called isYouTubeURL, where I decide whether it's a YouTube URL. And then in the functions here, where it's making, what is this? This is just deciding what kind of icon to use, I guess. Yeah, so if it's a shortcut file, then depending on how it's opened, it decides what icon to show. So if it's opened by a file explorer, we show the folders. If it's image, video, or MP3, we do another thing to get it. And I've added a YouTube scenario here, where if it's a YouTube URL, then we do another callback. And I've found this URL that we can use, image.youtube.com/vi/ the ID of the video, and then 1.jpg. That gives us kind of I think it's like 150 by 150 icon or something like that, which is the smallest one I could find that YouTube would allow me to just get. So that's the basics of it. Let's check it out. So when we go to the videos, now you'll see, there we go. So we have our first 4 thumbnails, and I could probably make this bigger. Yeah, there we go. And you can kind of see the thumbnails, and I'm wearing various different shirts. And you'll see once we have the 47 videos that it'll look kind of cool. So we'll add that whenever the heck that is that I add that. But let's commit this one because it's pretty simple. YouTube thumbnails. That one's in the bank. And let's move on to the next. Update history when setting position. What does this mean even? Is this in the browser? What is this? Oh, this is for the terminal. Update history when setting position. Was I not already doing that? Looks like before I had an effect here, and now I've moved that into the main command interpreter. That if the current item in the history is a string. Oh, I think this was spurred off of last episode where I was trying to understand what this prompt cleared piece was. And I think it was basically just to run this once in the end. And then it became kind of silly. That's why I was so confused by this, where I was like setting it, but only the first time within the setting dispatcher would I do a printing. It turns out that I could actually do that in the command interpreter at the start, where I could see, okay, we're at this position now, then let's write it to the terminal. Oh, right. Right. Let's just patch this so we can get a better look at it. I much prefer to look at the diffs in VS Code, actually. You just get that side-by-side is just so much cleaner to me. Although that being said, GitHub does have some kind of side-by-side view. Oops, that's the wrong patch file. I have a cool feature in Windows where when I save a file, my desktop doesn't show it unless I press refresh. I don't know why. No one knows why. So just to reiterate what I was thinking here, yes, it's actually in the history command. So before I would set the history and then I was waiting for an effect to trigger the fact that the history changed. And then if it changed, update the command, but then one time print it. That seems silly. So instead I could just do it one time here. That, okay, we're setting the history position. Well then change the terminal and update the command right now. So I don't know why I ever thought that needed to be an effect, because it actually worked perfectly just to do it right when I changed the position of the history. So that fixes that whole prompt cleared confusion. I mean, it doesn't fix it, but it makes me not have to waste time explaining it. So let's test it out here. So hello, enter, and then if I press up, there we go. There's our hello. And if I press type goodbye, then we get goodbye, and we press up again, we get hello. We press down, we get goodbye again. Down again does nothing. Up goes back to hello. Up again does nothing. So that works. There we go. We got a history now. Well, actually, we had a history before, but now we have one that makes a little more sense. No, another spam. I love these spam messages. What are they? I don't really want to even read this, but what do they get out of this? This is like a URL that someone would go to? I don't get it. Like, it must be a bot. I sure hope it's a bot. Otherwise, it's like, stop wasting your time with that. All right, let's commit that. Let's see where we are. Try to get through these commits here. Not too fast, but not too slow at the same time. So we've already done 2 days worth of commits. This is day 3 here. So the dialogues one, that's tricky. Ooh. This dialogue one, I started here, and then I think I don't finish it for a while. Maybe like down here, I think I finished it like just today. But at the same time, it's working good now. I just feel like maybe we should skip it at the moment, because the more I get done, the more I can tell, oh, this is the dialogue piece. Like, here's another dialogue piece here. Let's tell you what we'll do. We're going to move those commits till the end here. I'm going to put them in the next stream thing, but maybe I'll do them this stream. Let's just say dialogues, and then we'll make a note of which commits for now. We're going to say dialogues part 1, and we're going to say and we're just going to delete it randomly for no good reason. And then we're going to, once again, put it back. Oh, and then we're just going to jump to me. I'm just kind of clicking at random now. Okay, I want to double check here and just make sure this is also dialogue related. Yes, the open transfer dialogue stuff, absolutely. Actually, the fact that this changed here makes me feel like we're probably just going to have to apply this now. Let's just do it now. But I'm not even going to explain it first. I'm going to patch it right away, because this is a chunky one. And then we're going to try to figure out, what did Dustin do? Maybe we'll even just do all the dialogue patches right away. That's another option. That maybe makes more sense. Let's just skip ahead. That's never bit anyone in the ass before. Okay, dialogues part 1. So this was a lot of changes. Let's look at the simple stuff first. An icon. So I've used the copy icon. Also, so the dialogue, the use case that I care about at the moment for this dialogue idea is the copy dialogue. So when I drag in a large file and paste it, but currently nothing happens. So you don't know what's going on. All of a sudden, you drop it, nothing happens, and then 10 seconds later, maybe it appears, maybe it doesn't. What I'm going to do is have a copy dialogue. This part of the commit is only part of it. I think we're going to add to it, but let's just, well, I wonder if I want to explain it or finish it first. That's a tricky one. Let's try to finish it first, because there's only a few other tweaks here. Let's get all the other little dialogue tweaks, because I think once we get them, we'll have something a little more cohesive to explain. This was the transfer one. Sometimes I like to apply them to each other. One thing we can do here too is we can stage these by pressing stage there plus. Now when we apply the next patch, we can actually see the difference between them before we merge them. So there'll be some changes here at the bottom. So it was just the function changed. So I added this on that commit, and then here I made it optional. And here I did a little bit of condition stuff. Okay, so we won't dig into that. We'll explain that when we're explaining the whole thing. That one wasn't too hard. Let's see, that gets those 2 out of the way. Let's just see what other dialogue stuff we have. Looks like I mentioned it 4. I think I did a little bit of them here and then the rest at the end. Store sort value, yeah, that's separate. Add Python back, that's separate. What's this ignore dialogue? Oh, okay. That was when I was doing console log before I had the progress part. Well, maybe we can just skip that and just not have to ignore the rule by actually doing the correct thing. Let's quickly skim these to make sure that I don't have any other dialogue stuff that I snuck in. Looks like no, though. Yeah, I see here where I fixed that singleton thing. Set default for maximize state. That doesn't sound very dialogue-y. Looks like we're at the last dialogue piece. What was here? Yeah, here's where I added those stream videos. Added weather. Oh yeah, I added weather randomly. I forgot about that. There's a lot of things I found now that where it's like I'll run a command, I'll do help, or I'll run into something and it's like, oh yeah, I did add that. Right. Okay, let's just do this last transfer one then. So yeah, this is more dialogue stuff. Good. Let's apply all the dialogue patches and then look at the result and then try to understand the result. And what I'm going to do, what I like to do when it comes down to that and about what? Doesn't patch failed on that. So there's something on line 53 that changed somewhere in between those commits? Well, where was it? Could have been anywhere. That's easy. So now we're going to play the hunting game. I don't want to do that. Let's see if we have any obvious commit messages that look like, oh yeah, that was about dialogues. Debounce selection from flooding state. No. Remove get clone. Always show thin scroll. Tweaks to help output. That sounds generic enough to be dialogues. Nope, it's not though. Don't need to export. Hide show effect. Even more delay for maximize. Add date. Only save unloaded. Yeah, I don't see which one of these could have been that last dialogue change. That's fascinating. Safer access. Okay. I wonder what it was complaining about. Maybe if we can figure out which part of the patch it was complaining about. Let's look at the patch. Enhance. Zoom in. So it says the line 53 on the dialogue change. Is that like somewhere in here? Oop, that's part of it. So here's the dialogue change. The line 53 change would have been... Could it have been around styling? It's hard to tell. Oh, here's the line 53. So what changed it? Yeah, I must be missing a patch. Ugh, we're gonna have to quickly peek through these things then. So, oh, you know what it is? Oh, it's very obvious what it is. It's that darn ESLint error here. It's this exact thing that I said, hey, let's skip it. But that's the thing. That's the thing with patches. If one little piece is out of order, it's like, I don't know how to reconcile this. Yeah, I think it's, yeah, here it is right here. This got subtracted, but it never even got added because I decided not to. So where is it? It was like a console log. I don't have very many of them. Here it is. So now we add that back, and now we can apply the patch. There we go. In which it removes it, ironically. Or, it's probably not ironic. Isn't it ironic? Don't you think? Okay, so we're going to combine all of these into the stage changes. I'm going to unstage them, and then what we're going to do is we're going to go through them one by one and stage them to kind of get them out of our thinking process and just focus on the changes. So first thing, we'll do those icons. Let's get those up into the staging area. And then let's start going through the simple changes here to see anything. That don't look simple at all. Let's start at the bottom. So the URL loader, why did I have to change this? So for dialogues, that was the first time where I decided with apps to repurpose what I can pass to an app. So before, all I could pass, yes, when I'm opening the app, now it's got this thing called process arguments, whereas before it would just say, give me the app ID and give me the URL. Now I say, give me process arguments. So I had to change this little bit here. Instead of here where I said, just give me the URL or nothing, now I just pass in this. And if URL is undefined, then this is empty. So there'll be no process args. So we're gonna stage that one, and then I'm gonna inspect open so we can see those process args. I think they're just right here. Which file is it? Yeah, it's this one here. Is it? No, it's not this one. This one. Here we go. There's those process args. So what have I added to process args? So here I just get URL, just like I was before. I was passing URL directly, as you can see here. Now I extract from the process args, and then I dump the process args into the process. So it's kind of a way for me to pass other stuff in. And then if we look at the process arg definition that I've added, take a look at the diff here. So I added a little bit. Here was the process arguments. It was a URL plus another type of process arguments. In this case, the dialog processes can accept file readers. So that was an important thing, is that I want the dialogues to be able to get sent a list of file readers. And I've also added that in the notes. So a process can be made up of process arguments and process elements and all this other crap. Before it was just process elements and all the other crap. So I just added process arguments. So that explains these two files, the way that opens changed and the type definitions for it. Now that those are staged, I'm going to see I got a message here from Eric again. Question. If you have patches 1 through 3, for example, and apply patches 1 but skip 2 and apply the 3rd, will it work? Or was that error due to you missing? It was exactly because of that. Yeah, it was because I skipped patch 2, even though all that patch 2 had was just adding that one line, the ESLint rule. Patch 3 said delete that ESLint rule and then add this in its place. So like when it uses the line that's relevant to like as like an anchor point for the part that it's adding, that's when the patches kind of collide. So if patch 3, if the changes had been in that file but had been like further away from something that changed in patch 2, then it might have applied it. But there was a little too much overlap there that it just, yeah, it couldn't apply it. So that's why it's easier. There's two options. You can go into the patch and you can kind of just tweak that line, or you can just apply the patch 2. But yeah, that is the issue, and that's a problem I've had in a few of these streams where you can get ahead of yourself, where if you try to combine 3 different things and then because you combine something from further down, it actually messes up another patch that assumed the file was in some earlier state. So it's a bit of a balancing act. Thanks for the question, Eric. Let's keep looking here. So this is just another me changing the URL to be a URL parameter. I think I had to do this in a few cases here as well, just in a few times, because I've had to change how open works. I'm not necessarily sure if this was perfectly the right way to do it, but this is me wanting to repurpose the apps to be able to do other things, like be a dialog that gets information sent to it. I mean, I guess I could have done it through context. I really could have done it through context. Why didn't I? Well, I'm happy about having this process argument thing now, but I think there was a reasoning why I didn't use React context in this case. Another message from Abrar, add there is no game. Okay, I'll make a note. I've literally never heard of that one. I think you're making them up now. I'm not sure, but I'm going to add it. I mean, there's no way I'm going to be able to add all of these. On that note, too, if you want to look into adding some of these, you clearly know all the different games that can work in the browser. I'm actually surprised how often you list games and it's like, oh, there is a browser version of that. So you're not just arbitrarily naming games, I can tell. Feel free to try to make one of them work within my app. It's open source. It'd be cool. I'm hoping in the future that people want to contribute apps to it. So, or even improving their own. Like, let's say I'm using JS DOS and a few other things I use. It'd be cool if the creators of those things I'm using want to come in and support my app to be like, your app is a good showcase of my app, so I'm going to help make my app work better in your app. That's something I'm hoping on at some point. Let's keep looking at these simple changes. This was, again, just a process argument. It's just passing it along the chain of the open command. It gets a few things. So here's where I made the process directory entry for the dialog. These are all pretty boilerplate for the most part. This default height and width is the perfect height and width for the copy dialog. The / transfer. In the future, if I do more dialogues, I might not use this default size. I might even think of changing dialog to just be called copy dialog, because I don't actually have another use case for it yet at the moment. But I do want to have other dialogues, like the Windows key run R button for the run command in the start menu. That's basically a dialog. The file properties, that's basically a dialog. So I don't know if I want to reuse this dialog component or just make just make it, call it like an app, like the copy dialog component is almost separate. Anyways, let's add that directory in there. We won't get into these big file changes yet, just at the moment. This is another just changing the URL to be parameters. Same with this. Get these little minor changes out of the way that had to occur for that one change. I think this is, yeah, I think at this point we're gonna have to start explaining these things. Okay, so let's dig in. There's another one. There's another one of those, just changing the URL to be the arg thing. Okay, so we're down to very few. If we look here at the bottom with 1, 2, 3, this is the meat of the changes, I think, to make the dialogues work. So now let's look at that more. Joking, make fun of the spammer, says Eric here. Yeah, the spammers are, I don't get them. I don't want to have them sicked on me, you know. So for that reason, I don't want to push too far, but I don't know what they're up to. Let's get into some of the stuff here. Let's get into the hook. Let's start with the where is this hook called? I want to get to the base of where this begins. I think that use folder is not a good example for it. What is this? The file drop part. Yeah, I guess the file drop is where some of it happens. So you see here, I've got a hook called use dialog that has a function it returns called open transfer dialog. And I've also with file drop had to start passing in the directory, so that on the copy dialog I can say, hey, I'm copying into this directory, because before I didn't even know. This callback internally knew which directory it was copying to, but there was no way for this function to know about what directory it was. So now there is. And then I passed that along here into the handle file input event. This handle file input event is the central place to handle all the file transfer beginnings. So that's why I wanted to centralize it here in the places where I use it. So that's why, and I also allowed it to pass in this function, because handle file input event is not a hook or anything. So I made a hook, call a hook here to get this dialog hook, and then I give it that function as like a dependency injection type of thing. Save that one. Let's try to understand this one here. Add file. So for file drop, you remember I just changed file drop. So here's me also passing in directory now. I pass it in as the URL. In the case of the file manager here, we know it. But if you noticed here for file drop, the default, if I don't pass anything, is the temporary path. And that's also the default here. So if I were to drop something onto an app and it wasn't already part of my OS, then that gets saved into the temp folder. And then it doesn't have a URL specified to it. So this was the hook. So if you see the hook here, it's very simple. It just gets the open process command. And what it returns is you give it a list of file readers. And the file readers are based on this file reader concept. The file reader is a generic HTML thing. We'll look at the API for that in a second. So I say open the dialog app, and this is where I pass another thing. So before we were only passing URL. I don't care about URL, so I just pass empty for it. Actually, could I pass the directory there? Does that make more sense? Maybe it does make more sense to have it right there. Where is use dialog used? It's used in another place, I think. There's one other place when the add file command. For that one, I'm also, yeah, see, add files here. But where's the command add file? Here it is. Add file. Yeah, I pass along directory here. But did I, oh, I don't even use I don't have I didn't pass the dialog thing. I think that's an error on my part. Yeah, I didn't pass this handler, the open transfer dialog handler. So that means that it would not have yet, it wouldn't trigger the dialog in this case. So let's fix that in two ways. First I want to add the hook in. Where am I on this context here? Yeah, I'm in the right place, I guess. I'm going to do it higher up here because I want to call a hook. I try to kind of group them together. Actually, no, let's just call it here. This is where it's relevant. So this hook was that open dialog one, use dialog. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pass the directory in here, actually, and not pass it in there. And here we're just going to do like we were doing before. What was the thing this takes? I don't remember what the name of that is. Open, right? We'll call that open transfer dialog. And then the directory, we're going to take a directory in here. And then we'll pass that as the URL. That makes more sense to me. That's a little less kludgy. Let's see if it works. Let's see if it pays off. And then we just pass that along here, like we were doing in the other case. Now we go here, and we no longer pass directory in here. Wait, is that correct? Yeah. Now it's internalized within the open transfer dialog. So now we don't have to do all this directory. Oh yeah, this actually cleans it up a lot. I was making a mess with this before. Hopefully I don't make even more of a mess with this. Before I get further, I should almost stage this, because this could be me going the wrong direction. Let's roll with it, though. I think it makes more sense, honestly. Because we do know the directory in this case, didn't we? Oh, it's actually part of add file, so we actually don't know it. Oh, okay. Then we couldn't have used it as a hook here because... Yeah, I see. Okay, now things are making more sense. So that was partly right, though, actually. The hook part was right. I do need this hook. But let's keep directory there because it's actually not in this other context. And then I needed to pass this here. I wasn't passing that before. So if I didn't pass that, then had I added a file, had I done a transfer via the add file, it wouldn't have showed the copy dialog. But now it should. So let's fix that. Undo all the little attempt to think here that I did there. Re-import this, I guess. This isn't imported anymore. What happened there? Oh, now it thinks it needs this, but that's wrong. Let's go back to how that was before. Oops. There we go. Let's just go back to explaining this. So this looks like how it looked a second ago before I tried to have an idea that messed things up. So the key is that now we pass in these file readers, and the file readers are just these, are basically the file that was dropped in. This is these aren't my concepts. This is the HTML concept of a file. Is the HTML concept of the file reader. So if you inspect these ideas, these are like base HTML JavaScript stuff. Those aren't libraries or nothing. Because I'm using the browser APIs to do all of this. So that's the open dialog. Very simple. Run the command and it gets these file readers. So that doesn't tell us where the file readers are coming from. We still need to get there. I'm gonna add that to the thing. Now let's look at this other piece here. This was that add file scenario. Right, so I had to pass directory in. I didn't know directory before from add file. So now when you call add file, you also provide the directory, and then that's also handled in the file input handler so that we can pop up a proper dialog that has all the correct information. Okay, that one's good. Next up, we already have gone through this one. That was me adding the directory to that. The functions here. Here's another key piece. So the handle file input event, we know it now takes directory and it takes that open transfer that gets these file readers. Here's where we make the file readers. So here's the handle file input event. So if you drag something in, or if you right click and press add file, as soon as the browser has handed off that list of things you want to put in it, that's when this function has always run. And here's where it gets the event files, either from an input event or from a drag event. And the new part is I now add these file readers, and I now no longer do the read as array buffer. That's the command that actually reads. I delay that command. So I just push all of these files into an array. So I've got a big list of them now. Here's all the files you need. They're ready to go. I apply the right load listeners on all of them, and I've got them all prepared. And then at that point, if there is that transfer dialog, the function has been passed in, then we use that. We say open transfer dialog, here's the files. So you start the reads and you display the results. Now, if that dialog's not passed in, then this would happen. But is that scenario ever going to occur? Honestly, no. Let me double check that. Yeah, not anymore. I'm passing it in here. I'm passing it in here. So let's change the code slightly there to not even care about the scenario where it's not being passed in. That doesn't occur. Where is this? It was here in functions. Here we go. We basically don't need this condition anymore. We don't need to say this is optional. That's not optional. And that means that this will always occur. So the other scenario was that it does do the read array buffer, because if there wasn't this command, then there'd be nothing to pass it off to start saying read, read, read. But there will be, so let's not worry about that. And we'll just do the open transfer dialog part. So basically the code didn't change very much, but the part where it does read is now moved on to this function. So that means we get to see what that function's about. And the use folder is just adding that directory to the add file function. I pressed plus to this, but let's press it again and see if it actually listens this time. There we go. Oh, you guys can't even see. I'm sorry. I'm clicking things down here below my image, and they're not visible, but I am switching files here. There's just so many files in this list. But we're about to get to the main parts, the actual dialogue. And I actually have to split this out into 2 files because that's a bit messy. Let's take a look at it. So right now the index has the styled part inside it. That's wrong. Let's cut that out right now. And in the dialog folder, we're going to make one called styled dialog.ts, and we'll paste it in there. And that's going to do all this auto import magic that we all know and love so much. And I'll say export default as style dialog. And then we're just gonna, yeah, it's already been cut out of here. And I'll just try to import it here and see if it auto figures it out. It did not, of course, unfortunately. We can just, there's no good examples. Let me just press copy path here. Import styled dialog from, and we'll just clean up this URL a bit with the right slashes in the right direction. There we go. Oh, we don't need that .ts either. Nice. So this is a completely new file. I'm just going to open it without the diff because we don't need, there's no diff. It's just all new. And let's shrink this down. Yeah. For the styling, I almost wonder about talking about the styling, because it's like, it is what it is to look the way you want it to look. But let's go through the styling really quick, I suppose. The basics of what it's supposed to look like. It's just like a little copy box with a little background gradient, the word copying and the name of whatever the file is, the name of what directory it's going to, and a progress bar and a cancel button. That's it. So on that note, let me take a look at the markup. We have to take a look at the markup to make sense of it. This is the markup here. So that style dialog, it's got its H1 piece. I've decided to call it the H1 header, in which it has that copying word along with the name truncated to whatever the max length that it's going to fit, because it's a one-liner. Then I've got the little div containing the middle part, the to this directory and the progress bar. And then at the bottom here, I have the kind of the navigation footer type thing that has the cancel button. So the markup's simple enough. The to part I've made an H2 for. The progress bar, I'm using the HTML progress semantic element. So for the div here, this was just me trying to account for that top gradient bar, the nav bar, plus the borders, because I wanted to focus the height of that middle piece. That being said, this probably isn't the best approach. This was me doing some speed CSS kind of, and I'm hoping that's the ugliest of it right there. It's also not alphabetized. That's styled, the style linting thing failing on me, because there's supposed to be style linting for organizing this alphabetically, and it doesn't appear to be working at the moment. But we'll get to that in a moment. Yeah, I don't know how much I want to explain this. I'm trying to think of anything cool worth explaining. The progress bar, I tried to match stuff. This appearance none, I'm not 100% sure I needed this, but this seemed to make things more generic in certain cases. I almost want to get rid of that. Yeah, I don't trust that CSS setting. If the colors are all just copied from the screenshot I took. This was my attempt to get the gradient right. It's not too bad looking. It's like a little blue gradient. Looks close to the Windows one, I would say. I'd say very close, actually. Other than that, this is all just little tweaks I needed to get it to positioned the way I wanted. They all work relative to this idea that the dialog is a static size. That's why there's a lot of static numbers here, and it's not super responsive because the dialog is what it is, kind of thing. If it doesn't fit on your screen, well, it's going to look a bit messy, probably. I haven't figured out that scenario just yet. Actually, it probably wouldn't be too hard to adjust things here. Most of these are just visually the right tweaks, I would say. Anyways, yeah, how much can you explain CSS? Let's get to the code here. So we already went through the markup. Let's just, where's the meat and potatoes of the logic here? That's the markup. The hook we have here is for the file readers. So if there are file readers left, or if there are any file readers that come from the process, then I switch the title of the dialog to say copying, and I begin the process reader. And if there aren't anything to read, if for somehow the dialog opened and there's no file, and it turns out there's no file readers, then we just close it basically. And on that note, I guess I could do this to make sure that there's, oh wait, it's supposed to be an array. Just to make sure that that always is going to be an array and that that's not going to mess up on me here. In that case, I could actually do this too. Or could I? It seems like no. Okay, yeah, it's fine with that. Okay, that part's chill. The total transfer size, this was for me to make the progress bar the length of all the files. So I take the file reader array and I reduce it. And for each item, I get the size and I add those to the accumulator when I return it, basically. Simple enough. That works. And then here's the meat and potatoes of the process reader. So the process reader, this is me doing these kind of recursive functions where I like not really tail recursion, I guess, but you get the head item here that has the file, the directory, and the reader, and then you do the ... for all the remaining readers, what's ever left. So you set that one as the currently transferring one with the directory and its file, and then I add my progress event to the reader. I add what to do when it's done, and then I start the read event here. So for the progress event, all I get from progress event is loaded. That's all I care about. And all I have to do, yeah, right. So for file progress, I also keep a state track of that to see what the last loaded was, to just know what the intermediate pieces are that's getting loaded so that I can add those to the current progress. So I update the file progress to be the new loaded, and I replace the current loaded. So that at this point, I know what the last loaded was and the current loaded, to say the current loaded minus the last loaded is how much new kilobytes of progress have been made, or bytes of progress. So add that to the current progress of the progress bar. So rather than being percentage based, it's actually a big number. And that's where actually in the progress bar here, that's considered the max, is the total byte size. And then the progress, I just literally add the loaded bytes to the number. And that being said, this isn't perfect yet. This isn't perfected because I've noticed a few times when I dragged a ton of files over that the progress bar would get to the end and then it seemed like the dialog didn't close for a few seconds and the file names were still changing. So something's a little bit out of sync there, I think, still. But it was getting better. So when the loading of one file is done, it resets the progress of the current file track progress. And then if there are any remaining readers from that ... then it goes and processes them again. And again, gets the first one from the head, any remaining, and then loops through it. And once there's no readers left, then it closes. That's the dialog. And finally, the file entry. This is just so that I can pass the directory on file drop, so that on the drop target, so let's say on the desktop, that has a file drop hook that's associated with the desktop directory path, so that if you drop something in there, the dialog will know to show that, because that's what you pass to the file drop here, which gets passed to the handle file input event. Okay, so without further ado, it's time to demo this. Let me try to find a few big files here, or some big file. I guess I have, how big is that? That's not a very big file. Let's try it. I'm going to drag a file that's like 300 megabytes and you'll see. So I'm dragging it and letting go. There you go. There was a cool copy dialog. So that little copy dialog you saw, maybe you think, oh, that was the Windows dialog. No, that's the dialog I made. It went by kind of quick though. How about what we do quickly is just change the code a little bit so that it's not quite so fast. Where was that here? Dialog. Let me open this file and let's stop this close with transition after it's done its readers. And what I'm going to do too is I'm going to have more than one file. Let me just try to find something. I need to find big files. I have like videos, random videos of mine. These are so tiny, these files. It's trying to find big files just so that I can... Well, actually, I don't need big files because like I said, we just disabled the stopping thing. Let me just try to drag another thing on. Let me clear my cache here and then I'll drag the video on. So there's the copy dialog right there. And now I've stopped it from stopping. So you can see that it's a legit dialog and it's got copying the name of that file to the path and that progress bar worked and the cancel button also should work. There's no hover effect. I need to add a hover effect to the cancel button. But if I cancel it, it should just close it. Yeah, that works. Basically, cancel doesn't cancel anything. It just closes the dialog because I don't really have a good mechanism of canceling it. I guess I could cancel all future readers if cancel's pressed. I suppose I could. Well, this closes the whole thing, and this thing is what handles the file readers, so I guess in that way it would cancel them. But they already would have been queued up, so it's debatable if cancel does anything. It doesn't matter. So let's put that back to the way it was. And see, right, I wanted to mention in my show notes that we need to do the hover effect. So I actually did dialogues here, but let's say hover effect for dialog cancel button, because I'm pretty sure there's a hover effect in Windows when you hover over it. Otherwise, though, I thought it looked pretty close to the copy dialog. I thought I did pretty good there. You guys can be the judges of that. And that is the dialog. So that's actually the copy dialog. Plus, or let's just say dialogues with copy, with transfer use case. Transfer files use case. Yeah, that's the basics of what I did there. Okay, that was a big commit. Like, we're already at an hour and a half here. The reason for some Red Bull sips. Ah, delicious. Okay, I think we've gone through all the dialogue ones. Let's move on to some other wild ones. How about we have the ability to run Python code within our app? Does that make sense to anybody? Let's do it. I actually hinted at this last episode. Oh, right. This was the same problem I had last episode. I think there's actually a solution for this. I just have to download the files. And now that they're separated properly, it's easier. So let's just download these files separately. Unfortunately, that's what I have to do. There's some kind of weird Git thing where I can't make a patch out of this stuff. Either it's just too much data or I don't know. But what we'll just do is we'll just manually save each one of these. There's not too many changes. This one's confusing. There's a file called packages.json, not to be confused with package.json. This has absolutely no connection to it as far as I can see. There's also this one here. And then what other files are there? There's also this pyode file here. There we go. How many files I got now? Let me delete my patches I have on my desktop. And let's just see how many. There was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I got 5 files. What did I miss here? Pyode. Did this not download? Pyode ASM. Okay. Oh, the WASM. Okay, I don't have this. Maybe I skipped that somehow. Get that one. These are some big files. That's another thing where I'm hesitant to tell people to run the Python commands on my website because it's like telling them to download 13 megabytes of stuff just to do hello world or something like that. But I've also decided that it's worth adding for if someone's going to go to the trouble of going to my website, open a terminal and try to do something in Python, I should at least allow them to try, I feel. All right, what else is missing here? Pyode. This one, I guess. Man, I just skipped the last two files somehow. Maybe I glossed over them. Okay, so now we have all the source files. That was a large... How many... Let me just check this. I'm just going to check the properties of these files here. It's almost 20 megabytes. 19.2 megabytes, those 7 files. It's not a lightweight. So I'm going to take this path here, and I'm going to open it up on my file explorer that I'm not currently sharing, but just trust me, I'm opening it. Program files. I'm going to make a folder called Pyode, Pyodide. I should actually probably explain what this is, too, this word I'm making up, this Pyode. I hope it's called Pyode, too. I actually not even double-checking my own pronunciation. But let's just take a look, and then we'll actually take a look how it's spelled at the same time. So it's called Pyodide. I don't know how you pronounce that. Python with a scientific stack compiled to WebAssembly. That's the basics of it. It's basically Python in your browser. And we're going to try to make it easy to use by putting it in our terminal. I'm going to copy this other file here. These are the two files that are actually my files. There's and looks, you can see that one there is not too big. And this one here, we'll add this piece right here manually. So let's go into the command interpreter. And let's see what I need to add. I'm going to do it line by line because it's not too many things. So we're going to import that run Python command that doesn't yet exist. We'll actually just create that as well. Let's make a new file here called python.ts. And I'm just going to paste in the code that I had from there. Let's take a look at it right now and see what's up about it. So we'll look at the main function here. Run Python. It takes some code and it takes the terminal so that it can do output. First thing it does is it loads the files, pyodid.js. That's the main library file. That's all you need to load. And then all those other 6 files I downloaded are like support files that it loads itself. Then I check to make sure that the pyodid thing loaded in the window object. So it's now part of the global environment after the files load. And if that's the case, wait, what is this? So first I actually just check if load pyodid exists. That's the first thing that gets triggered from this. And then I create window.pyodid by doing this load command that they have already set up for me, where I pass in this config. And all the config is an index URL to where the other files are, where those support files are that I downloaded. Then I have here the window.pyodid. So once we do have that pyodid thing, then why couldn't I just put it here then? I guess, oh right, because this is only a one-time thing, this part, right, okay. So then this assumes that this already exists after that. And then I have 2 basic commands. You can pass in Python version, and I've decided that command, passing in the word ver or version, is going to give you the version. Because I want to spit out the version so I can show some support for the people or whatever. And just because it's nice to be able to do a version command, I think. Otherwise, it's just always going to run the code. So that's the little logic here. And this is the command here, run Python async. That's the library. That's where I just throw it off to them to do all the work. And then once I get a result, I just write that to the terminal. And I convert it to a string and replace the new lines. And I actually change this into a more generic command in the near future. So that's that little piece. And I'm going to add the Python command here to my list of commands. Elemental PQRST, like that. Yeah, okay. So that's the main command, Python, run code through Python interpreter. And we will have an alias to it. Elemental PQRS, a Python alias of py. So if you type py, it also says the same thing. And then we'll just put that right up here. There we go. So if you type py or Python and the terminal exists, then it's going to send that to the run Python command. And we've already gone through what the run Python command does. We've already added the library files where they need to be. So let's just check it out. We're going to open up the terminal here. No, we're going to open a random thing. Now we're going to open the terminal. And we'll just type in py version. And it loads all the libraries, and there we go. 3.95. Running some Google Clang thing. So I could say Python 1 plus 1, 1 plus 2. What other things can I do? I don't know. I mean, even that ver is actually a Python command. If you see here what I've made the version command, it imports sys and then does sys.version. So you could do other stuff with that Python thing, but I've just kept it very basic for now. And realistically, if someone was on the internet doing this, it's going to download 20 megabytes when they type that command. So it's a little hefty. But then, yeah, you have Python. I mean, I can't think of any good Python commands as an example. I found one thing is like if you do print, it prints in the console but doesn't print to the terminal. That I thought was weird. Oh, and you can crash the whole thing, I guess, if you type a wrong Python command. So kind of neat. Can I undo that? Yeah, okay, I can undo that. But that's cool. Yeah, it just crashes in that scenario. It even tells me how to properly print it, maybe. It says I should have done print 1 plus 1. That's funny. It even kind of fixes my Python for me. Paste to the clipboard. Oh, okay, yeah. And as you can't see, let me move the terminal over. So you see here the 2 is printed here. So that's a weird thing I noticed when you do the literal Python print command, it goes to the console log, and I am not able to capture that. I mean, I might be able to in theory, but I would rather just go into the output. And for that, it's actually easier to just do a raw, 1 plus 1 like that. Then it actually does print as the result. So there we go. We got Python now. So my website doesn't run on Python. My website runs Python. Extremely slowly and inefficiently, I assume. But that's not really the point of what we're doing here. It's all about fun little proof of concept and people being like, I didn't know it could do that kind of thing. So that's another one. Got another message here, I think, as well. Also got another spam. Let me remove this spam here before we read the good message. Message here from Joy Ayete. Interesting stuff. I'm happy to join live from Ghana. Oh, wow, cool. Happy to have you, Joy. Thanks for checking it out. Checking out my stream. Hey everyone, sorry. I hope we're live again here. My OBS once again failed me. Hopefully, looks like we might be live again. Yeah, for the second time this stream, my OBS has failed me. It's very disappointing, and I don't know why it does that. But that's my streaming software, and I see it not fail other people. So I don't know what's going on. My computer is actually decent. I don't think it's my computer, but it's some kind of configuration mistake. Anyways, I don't know if you caught that. I was just saying thanks. Joy's here. Joy is joining from Ghana. Thought that's pretty cool. So we just added Python for anyone that was tuning in. Hopefully none of that got cut off. But now we have Python in the code, and we move on. We did this, we did that, we did this one. Here's the next one. Store sort by value. Right. So this was another thing that was annoying me. Let's refresh the page here. If you look at these files here, and let's say I say sort by item type, so it does resort them. It will remember that. If I refresh, though, and I go back into sort, it thinks it's resorted by name now. That's wrong. It's now sorted by item type. Or at least that was the last requested sort state. So I want to be able to save that. I wasn't saving that before. I saved the position the icons are in, so they still stay in that position. But the little sort status always goes back to name. And I didn't like that, so I fixed it. And now we're going to look at what I did to fix it. I download the patch file, do git apply, refresh my desktop, drag it on, enter. There we go. Then I quickly go into my git commit and copy the name so I can paste it in here. And now we can look at the changes. What did I have to change? Looks like I had to change a couple things to get this one going. Surprising how much I had to change. Let's look at the first thing. So this is the session context. Here's where I had to add to the session, I think. Did I? Set sort order. I did not have that before. Okay, so before I was just exporting the dispatch command. Was I? Ah, okay. So before I was exporting a dispatch command called set sort orders. Now it's just called set sort order, and I handle the plural of that internally. Because before, I think in several places, I was taking the sort orders, adding to the list, and then sending it back. And that adding to the list was like a little error prone and it was a little boilerplatey. So I've moved all that logic into here, and now it's a little more advanced. So now when it's setting the sort orders, it actually, right, the sort order is made up of a little different stuff now. Before, the sort order was just an array of the items. Now it has the order like it had before, but it also has this information here. The sort by and the ascending, or the current and the current ascending if neither of these are passed in. So when one of the apps sets the sort order, if it doesn't set if it didn't change the actual right-click menu sort order, then those aren't changed in the status of the session. Those are grabbed from the current, which was pulled here from the current session, the current sort orders. Right, which is coming from set sort order, right. So it gets the current sort order, and then if nothing's overriding that, it just uses that. And to keep this being like a dispatch command, I had to add this little logic here, because that's kind of like how React Dispatch does it, where you can pass in a string or a function. So if my set sort order, if the new order is a string array, then I just pass that directly. But if it's a function, I pass the current one to the function so that it can do some manipulation of it and give me the new one. But that was kind of my way of intercepting the dispatch command, and then doing a little bit of a comparison here and changing adding the sort part to it. So that's part one, the session part. The types here, I had to update this a bit. As I said before, it was just the name and then a string array. Now it's a string array and the sort order and the ascending or descending Boolean. So that's a little different than just being the string array before. Now it's like 3 pieces. But those 3 pieces make it up. So when in any given folder, once the session saves it, it'll know which order the icons are in, the last requested sort type, and the descending or ascending requested order. And yeah, I augmented this command to it's no longer a React Dispatch, because now it can accept these like four pieces. That's that piece. Next piece of the puzzle here is the sort hook. Before I was just doing set sort orders. Now I actually get the sort orders so that I can. Why do I get the sort orders? I get the sort order for the directory, and if the session sort by, oh, okay, is this an initialize thing? Oh, right, this is when you first call the sort hook. I set the current sort by. Oh, okay. So this is the thing that keeps track of the right-click menu's sort status as to what sort's been requested. So this already existed like this. But this hook never existed to give it an initial value. So by default, it has name and ascending. But now there's this hook that tries to get the current sort order. And if that's different, then it updates the folder with that new information. Right, that part's okay. And then this part here, this is where I was saying it's no longer set sort orders, but it's set sort order. And it specifies just one order for one directory. And then I don't need to do all this current stuff and pass things in a different way. So that's a bit more generalized now. In the folder here, right, now before I was getting sort order, now I just have to change it a little bit to be a destructing assignment so that it gets the first element, which is also the same thing, the sort order. I changed these commands to be a little simpler now, which is nice. Because in these scenarios, I don't actually set sort order. Most of the time, I never need to set the type or the ascending descending. Only in that one use sort by hook. Here, when I'm setting sort order, it's just about changing the order of the items. So it doesn't overwrite that there. And then this is in regards to the drag. Oh, this is just the same thing. This is just, again, not set sort orders anymore. Now it's set sort order, which is simpler. You see I didn't need this extra logic here, and I could just return one thing. Yeah, that's just cleaner. So I kind of cleaned up the set sort orders, and at the same time, now I saved the session. So now let's go back to it here. Let's clear all of this, start fresh. Now if I right click and I say sort by item type, and I say sort descending, so item type descending, I refresh the page. The icons are still the correct order. And now when I right click, there we go, item type and descending. So now it remembers it between loads of the page, which is important for, in general, for all the stuff I'm doing here. There shouldn't be anything that's jarring in the experience. It should all be just like, you should be surprised when something doesn't work just like how it works in Windows. Even though, honestly, those are all over the place. I mean, they are and they aren't, I guess. Got an oops from Joy. I'm not sure which oops you're referring to, but there's a lot of opportunities for it, perhaps when my stream crashed. Okay, what is this? What am I looking at here? This was the change. I've already done this change. Right. Where are we now? Where are we? We're an hour and 50 minutes in. I'd say we're about halfway done the commits. Oh man, are we halfway done? Looks like it. All right, let's keep going. Ignore this dialog log for now. I already dealt with that. That's done. Nice. Skip through it. Safer access to sort orders. This was something I messed up, I guess. Looks like it. Yeah, darn it. So when I tweaked that one command, I probably should have said the sort orders can, it might not exist. So let's just make that a little bit safer. A lot of times these safers are me literally running into it crashing for some reason and realizing, oh, if I just set a default here, that goes away. And I'm usually okay with that most of the time. So I don't catch every single one of them, but if it causes an error for me, then I'll just fix it. And this is one of those cases. So now safer, and I'll associate that with the same kind of commit. Joy says, yeah, exactly, for my stream crashing. Yeah, I don't know if you were with me earlier today, but it's crashed twice already, so it's a little frustrating. I haven't figured out why. It's just the video freezes, and it's, yeah, if you're not watching live, it's a little smoother actually, because after it gets published, it's like when my stream freezes, it's almost, the video is smooth and then it just skips to the next part where I'm live again. So there's not like me just frozen, and there's not black. It kind of, in the final version, it kind of just cuts that out. YouTube just chops it out, I guess, which is probably okay with me. Next up, package upgrades. We can skip those. So dev tools, this is a fun one. As I was mentioning, this is using that Aruda thing that I, just to give them another shout out. Aruda, you guys are cool. And I'm gonna use your thing to have my own little dev tools package. And let's make sure we didn't get any tweaks here. This is another piece I added to it. This is another tweak. Here we go. So we're gonna apply all these three little tweaks at the same time. Makes more sense to me. That's 1, 2, and then this was the last one, the tweaks. I'd rather we just apply it with all the tweaks so I don't have to do it one way and then explain to you why I changed it right away. Now we play the game of me trying to remember what the order of these commits were. Let's see if I get it right. The first one will probably work. Maybe not. Yeah, I don't know what the order of these things is. Let's try this one. That was wrong. Let's try this one first. No. Oh, Giddy. Giddy's not right. That was wrong. Okay, so it's the last one on my list here on my desktop. It's probably the first one. Okay, package JSON. Let's quickly confirm which commit was which here. The first one is add dev tools. That's EFA. So that is the correct one, EFA, but the package.json in my patch needs to change because the versioning is now wrong. These are the most annoying ones when they happen. Oh, actually, no, this is right. The package.json file needs to change because I need to add that package, but I think it's complaining because the versions don't quite line up. Yeah, if you see here, it's trying to match up, assuming that these versions are all correct around it when it adds this line, but maybe something here is no longer correct. What we're going to do is we're going to manually add this piece here. I'm going to copy this, and we're just going to cut out this change from the diff altogether. Now we're going to apply the diff. It goes fine, and then we're going to do yarn add the Aruda one, and I think it's a dev dependency. And the reason I added it by the npm URL, or sorry, the GitHub URL instead of by the npm package name is because the npm package doesn't have its type file. But all I want is its types for dev. So that's why I'm pulling it as a dev dependency so that I can import its TypeScript file so that I can utilize its types without actually having it be part of my bundle. That was the first patch. Next one is, let me double check. Next one is the 540 here. And then finally is the tweaks one, which is the E08. There we go. So we've applied all three of the patches. So this is our full-on Eruda DevTools change. Before we look at the code, let's just jump right to looking at the result here. I think I need to do a yarn build fs to just get the latest file system tweaks. Now I'm going to do a clear cache as well. So if we look in our start menu now, we have a little icon called DevTools. And I've used the little eyeball that's the same one they use as their favicon here. I usually do that when I take an app from someone. I try to use their favicon to like give their branding, not to steal their branding, but just to be like, that's just so you recognize it. All right, so we click DevTools, and there we go. Here's a DevTool, and it looks a lot like Chrome DevTools. It's got the elements page with some of the familiar stuff you have there. We got a network tab. Got a lot of cool resource information here about what icons are on the page. The source code. You can see the DOM too and actually manipulate the different DOM pieces. Look at different info about yourself. Change other various settings. And I mean, you can resize it and all that stuff too. So it kind of gives the user a feel like they're digging into my website without actually doing it. So I was pretty happy to have this one. I mean, I have a lot of Inception like that. I have my terminal here has PS, so we can see the processes here. I mean, we got ls to look at the listings of the directory. So let's say with PS, let's say I could do kill dev tools to kill it. So we have a lot of cool little stuff like that. But yeah, we've added dev tools. Let's see how we did it. I mean, honestly, a lot of these aren't so hard because the people who've made these packages have gone to all the work to make a library where they say, give me a DOM element, give me a container, and I'll put my app in it. So I've been using that idea quite a few times, and it's been pretty good. Here's the icon, DevTools. That's a shortcut in my start menu. Here's the icon. That's the icon, the actual photo. Got two of those. Here's the Eruda source files. I've also added the Eruda-DOM. That's an add-on one for it to have an additional DOM tab because that's a cool tab. I wanted to have that one. Here in the package file, I've added the Eruda to my dev dependencies so that I could use its type files that were in its repo. I've added it to my directory listing. I've also used this background color that matched the background color that it loads with. I think it does. Let me just quickly check that on my own time here. Yeah, looked about right. I don't know why I picked that height and width. I think I picked that width because it was exactly the amount of tabs to fit perfectly on the amount of tabs. But you can expand on that. But the default width is just enough to see all the different tabs. At that one, the styled dev tools, not too much had to change here, but I had to get rid of the button that hides and shows the dev tools because the Eruda concept assumes that you're on a page you don't always want to show it. But because I've kind of boxed it in as an app, I get rid of that button that ever hides it. It's like always show it if it's there. Also in the container, I had to do a little bit of tweaking to the height because it tries to do like an 80% height. It tries to like peek a little bit onto what would be the website. But in this case, again, it's containered in its window, so it can be 100% of everything there. And I don't know what I'm doing here. Oh, this nav bar thing. Yeah, this was trying to add like scroll bars when they weren't necessary. So I just do overflow hidden there and it looks better to me. The index of the app is just another container component. These generic container components that I use whenever I can. And finally, we have the main hook, and let's open that. And you can see it's pretty simple too. If you minimize its config here, actually, maybe I should export this too. Let's move this config into up here at least and call it config. Const config equals, not configs, config. Oh, container. Yeah, well, that's okay. We can get rid of that. what we'll do here then is we'll just say is the config plus that container. There we go. That kind of splits up that logic a little bit. So if you see the main hook here, it doesn't have to do too much. Basically, the first thing it does is just this one effect. That's all it does, where it loads the files, the libs. In this case, the libs is just that eruda and its DOM. Puts those scripts in the head, basically. Then it double checks to see that it's loaded the window objects it needs. It gets the container. In this case, I don't use the container ref. I made another div inside that, and I picked that div to give it as a reference. Because I noticed with eruda, it was messing up the thing I gave it as a container. It would like take that, and it would almost change its parent, or inherently just change it. So I decided, hey, if you're gonna go that aggressive, I'm gonna have to put you one level deeper, basically. So the container gets picked, assuming it finds it here. Then we do the initialization, which is very simple. It's just eruda init with that config, which I'll show you. And the config is just on their website. You know, it's not something I made up. And also, if you just go to their GitHub repo and look at their TypeScript files, you can learn from there what it is. I do add, where you add, this is like to add a plugin, like that DOM plugin that got loaded by the library. And then you just say show. And at that point, I tell the app that it's no longer loading, so that on the window, it can now show the thing that, and eruda's already been told to show as well. And then if it closes, there's a destroy command that I try to run to clean up the eruda app. And then let's look at the config really quick. So it had this concept of a shadow DOM. It's another way to isolate the styling. I put false to that because it's harder for me to target the shadow DOM styling. And it just wasn't necessary anyways, I felt. Auto scale true. I think that's the default, but just in case, I wanted it to auto scale. And then here for some defaults, I set the display size to be that 100%. I don't know if that does anything because I still had to do the override of the height 100% thing. The transparency 0, that works for sure. So the transparency didn't really work the way I wanted it to anyway. So I prefer no transparency for this app. It's a cool idea. I don't want it though. And then one of the cool things was the Mononoke Pro theme that they seem to include, because that's actually a theme I like. I like the Mononoke style coloring. So that's what I use for the DevTool coloring. That's it. That's the whole config. So you can see here where I was using the eruda types for the tool and the eruda concept, which are defined here so that those properly work. I could probably find the config too if I want to be hardcore about it. If it's in here somewhere, like there's a transparency. Right, so those are the defaults, but where's the config? There's, yeah, init options. I guess this whole thing, it's like init defaults plus init options. Or maybe just init options, actually. Let's see, can I get init options from here? Is that a thing? Looks like it is, so then I could say that this is init options. There we go. Just like that, by doing that kind of stuff with types, you almost like validate it a little bit. So now if I were to just press enter and, well, this is a bad example. I don't know any variables. Let's say, let me delete that auto scale one. So let's say I knew about auto scale and I go A. So that if I just type A, it knows about auto scale now because of that type stuff. And it knows it's a Boolean, and it knows I can go inspect, go definition, and get more information about what auto scale does. Auto scale eruda for different viewport settings. So that's a nice thing I like to do, where if I can find the type for it, I'll assign it. Another message here. Joy says, did you have to download any files from Mononoke Pro theme to work? Can I change it out of the blue? I think you can change it out of the blue, and I didn't have to. This is again going back to these eruda people. They actually just happen to have that theme. That's just a theme they made. So if we go to settings here on theirs, theme, you see they have a bunch of themes. So they have the Mononoke Pro one here. And they have, yeah, different various ones, Arc. And so that means that my app should have it too. Let's check it out here. DevTools, settings, yeah. So you can just change it on the fly. Let's say you want it to be Dracula. There, now it's more Dracula looking. That's kind of cool, yeah. So no, you don't have to download them. They just internalize those into this library. You could look at the DOM and you can actually, I wonder if you could see itself in the DOM. Doesn't look like it. This is like an old version of the DOM because the window should be here somewhere. If I actually look at the DOM here. Oh wait, it's in main, right? Main. Oh, this is it actually. Yeah, it can see itself. That's trippy. Yeah, there's DevTools right here. I wonder if I can delete. I can't manipulate this stuff. Still kind of neat, anyways. But this is the real DevTools. This is the fake DevTools. But it still has a lot of the same stuff, so that's kind of cool. Got a lot of introspection. Back to the code here. Joy says, "Oh, awesome. Yeah, it is pretty cool. These guys did a good job." This is me standing on the backs of giants whenever I use plugins like this. And then someone runs it and they're like, "Whoa, he got DevTools." It's like, I did not do very much, you know? I did this basically. This config is the meat of the entire thing here, basically. And the fact that I knew to run init, add, and show in that order. And all that's in their documentation too. So I didn't really have to do too much, and a big shout out goes to them on that one. Let me find the message I should add. Let's just call it added DevTools, and we'll ignore this DOM and tweaks part because that's just all part of it. And let's commit that. Added DevTools. Close these here, add it to our notes, and do a commit here. Thank you, Dustin from Joy. Yeah, no problem. Anytime. I appreciate the questions. Any kind of feedback, I'm into it. So we've done all of these now. We're at the point here of just still having a lot of commits to get through, actually, but let's just keep burning through them. I still have energy. It's 2 hours in. My Red Bull's empty. I actually have another random soda here. This soda ginger ale. Not energetic. I think it has a bit of caffeine, maybe. Let's give it a shot. Yeah, it's good. It's good. Okay, fix icon for video shortcut. What was broken about it? Is this where it was flooding? I think icon equals icon. So this is for URL. I'm defaulting to that icon that's kind of defined up here if it's empty. So then instead of checking this, I just always run the callback. Right. I think that was the issue. I think there was a scenario where the URL icon was the icon, but I did want to show it. Now, that being said, I do not recall how to give anyone a demo of that. I don't remember what caused that to look that way. Actually, wait, it shouldn't be that hard. Video shortcut. Let's see here. Videos, and let's create a shortcut here. Well, the YouTube shortcuts are already shortcuts, so that's actually a special scenario where when I make a shortcut of a shortcut, it just copies a shortcut. Let's try this instead. So here's the file here. Now I'll make a shortcut of this. There we go. So it's missing the image. And if I refresh, that doesn't get better. Yeah, it's still missing this image here. So let's fix that with this patch here that claims to do such a thing. Do a git apply, paste it in, paste in the message, and we've already went through it. It doesn't need to do that comparison because that scenario is actually okay. Oops. There we go. Now the shortcut has a picture. That's all I wanted. So let's be happy with that and do a refresh. Did I already? Yeah, I already pushed that commit. I didn't paste it here, though. That's critical. There we go. Got a note that I did it. What next? Update URLs for singletons. Here's where I fixed that singleton thing, I think, right? This was the issue where the URLs, if you run an app and then you try to run it again, I want to trigger the app to once again know that the URL has changed or been requested to change again, even if it is to the same thing. So let's apply another patch. That's the easiest way to start some of these things. All right. What did we do? What did I do this time? So in the directory, I got rid of JS-DOS being a singleton. Why did I do that? Oh, yes, because when the JS-DOS instance would get a new URL, it would change, but there's something about that doesn't quite work. I think to change URLs for JS-DOS, it almost fully had to be broken down and brought back up because of the way I was doing it, I should clarify. Rather than fix that, I've just stopped it being a singleton. In a perfect world, it doesn't need to be a singleton, and you should be able to run two multiple DOS instances, and it does kind of work, but there's a little bit of wonkiness with it. So I was going to disable it, but now I've decided, you know what? Let's just have the wonkiness rather than the brokenness. Here for use file, what have I done? So if it's a singleton, before here, if it was already running and it was a singleton, I would just, if it was minimized, I would reopen it and then I would focus on it. But I wouldn't update the URL or anything or try to set it. So now if it's open and I double click it, rather than just focusing it, it also says try to change the URL, even if you don't need to. And finally, this is in WebAmp, because WebAmp was the one case where I actually wanted it to work differently. So for WebAmp, if the same thing gets picked again, I wanted it to play again. The way I did that is I've renamed this from current URL to be loaded URL. Oh, right. So I've done it like in a little temporary way now where it kind of cleans itself out every time, I believe. So here's the thing now. So now when a URL comes in, if it's not the loaded URL, it loads it in Winamp, sets that as the loaded URL. Now the next, wait, wait a minute. Wait, what does this do then? If the URL is not the loaded URL, then it loads it. That's fair. But if you click it again and it is the loaded URL, then what happens? If the URL equals the loaded URL, okay, then it just clears it? If there's a, well, I don't understand this logic. I'm trying to think of the reasoning behind this. I think the trick is that this gets triggered after loading occurs. So this kind of comes back around and cleans itself up. But don't quote me on that. This is clearing the URL in the process. So after the URL is loaded, it clears it, basically. That's the gist of it. And it also clears the loaded one. So then when it comes back around here, it redoes it again. Okay, I think that makes sense. So the basics of it is that every time a URL is picked, even if it's the same one, I want Winamp to try to load it again. Let's give that a test to see if that does work. So we go to music, I double click this. Okay, it's playing the song. Now when it ends, I'm going to try to click it again. I'm going to double click it again. There we go. And it played again. So that was not happening before. That was not working. Before it would just be like, oh, I don't know. It would just refocus on Winamp. Update URLs for singletons. That's the key. And what other thing was I saying that would fix? Was I saying that that was going to fix the pasting? Because I don't think it would. Let's double check that. I don't think it would, though. So we open up a terminal, and I drag the file name on. So that works. But if I drag it on a second time, yeah, that doesn't work. Okay, so that's another piece of the puzzle here. That's actually, singletons don't change you. So let's tweak that to be drag/drop into terminal of same URL doesn't repaste. And I think the issue there is that, like I do with Winamp, I need to clear the URL after it's been loaded almost. So now like when the URL changes, don't just let it sit there. I'm using the URL changing almost like an update mechanism. So it's like it changes, okay, I got the change, and then clear it. I think that's what I need to do. But I'm just going to note it like this for now, because maybe I'll think of a better mechanism in the future. And I don't want to over-engineer that idea, so I'm just going to leave it as a little bit not as good as it could be, basically, for now. What's next? Clear source doc before loading. Okay. This is in the browser. I don't know what this fixes, though, to be honest. I mean, I guess this is a little... I think this is the same idea, that you want to load a HTML, and then maybe you change it a little bit, and then you just want to refresh the page. Oh, you know what this was, actually? This was for browser not refreshing properly. I'll show you here. So if I press refresh, that refreshes. But if we loaded an HTML document, which was using the iframes source doc field, which is a field separate from the URL field, then it wasn't working. So let's see here. I open this, so that's opened. But if I press refresh, you see it never updates because it never got cleared in the refresh, so it never had an opportunity to reload and trigger the loading mechanism. Let's just fix that really quick with a copy paste. I'm not even going to use a patch this time. I just got to find that entry and slightly modify it. So we'll change it to be like that. So rather than so every time it is going to set, but first it'll clear it, and then if there was HTML, it's going to update it again. So I'm counting on React to properly follow through with those two changes. which it had in my tests. And let's check it out in a test, by the way. So we'll refresh this now. I open this, and now when I press reload, there we go. It's very fast because it doesn't even have to load a URL. It's just loading, it's just cleaning the source doc HTML content and then re-getting it again, which it already maybe even has cached because it's freaking fast. Anyways, let's not dwell on that minor tweak. Let's find another thing to dwell on. So we did all these two. How many days we got left here? 25, 26, 27. 3 days worth of commits. Let's take a look at this one. Allow saving opening maximized. I remember that I fixed this, but I think I ended up tweaking this twice. Yeah. That default for maximized state. Okay, that's part 2 of that same change. This is part 3 of that same change. And then this is part 4 of it. So in the end, this becomes a 2. I'm just going to skip these 2 changes and I'll apply the 2 here when I'm doing this change. So these 4 changes are basically for a feature that I've been missing for a while. And it's still not perfect. Basically, you maximize a window. That's actually a bad example. Let me find a window that's this one here, the My PC window. I maximize that. Now when I close, okay, it's closed. But if I open it again, it doesn't remember that it's maximized. The reason is that opening it again was causing an animation to trigger. But because the animation had a transition, the calculation as to where the maximized window should finally position was happening on a transitioning window, which meant the math wasn't always perfect. Sometimes it was off by some pixels, so it would like maximize a little bit off because of the transition. So basically all I've done is I've just delayed it, the entire window animation, to the point where I know, okay, the window has stopped moving, it's stopped resizing. Now I'll look at the maximized state, and if it should be maximized on load, then I'll maximize. It's a little non-ideal. But at the same time, at least it allows it to work, because currently it just doesn't save your maximized state. And maybe for a lot of people, who cares? You're just visiting some random dude's website. But honestly, you could say that about every feature of this whole thing. I care. So I just, Windows can do it, basically. Windows can save a maximized window, so I want it to be able to too. But it's not ideal visually how it kind of transitions. Anyways, I'll stop knocking it down and I'll let you judge for yourself here. Let me apply the first patch, and I'm also going to export the second piece. Well, extremely minor. Maybe I can just find it here. Here we go. I'll just add that default. This was the other commit, and then the final commit was that number. Where was that tweaking of the delay? Here it is here. Oh, that was a bad copy. Let me copy something that's a little more detailed. Here we go. This one here. I was thinking that the window transition alone would have been enough, but that's like right on the edge of milliseconds, kind of. So I've decided to just go double a window transition, which might be too much, but that's basically the final version of that. So let's take a look at what that looks like before we look at the code. Now when you open up that, so I maximize it and then I close it. Now when I open it again, you see it's a little jank. It's like open, maximize. At the same time, it's not going to be, that little period is not going to be enough for people to be messing with it too much. But it's a little jank. I'm not super happy about it, honestly. Like I can change that delay to be less. But I'll show you what happens if it's nothing for delay. Let me go back to the code here. Where was that delay? Here. Let's switch this delay to a 0. Leave that in the comments there. And now we'll see. Watch. So I open the window. So you see there, it's a little off right here. It's off on the bottom. And that's basically because of the transition. At the same time, it was a faster maximize. It's like whoosh. It opens nice. But I don't know how to handle the transition right now. So I've added this offset, this little delay. Ideally, the window transition alone would be enough, though. But I was noticing that it wasn't always. Maybe I should just allow that to be enough, or add a couple milliseconds. Let's try this now. This is just a window transition. See, that worked this time. But I feel like, yeah, it's a little tight. Looks smoother though. Oop. It almost is reasonable. Yeah, I mean that actually is working right now, but I know that I tweaked the delay twice because it was not always working like that every time. Tell you what we'll do. We'll just add a little bit of tweak though. Like double seems too much. What if we add an extra 25% to that delay? Let's just be happy with that for now, and let's just start looking at the code. It wasn't too much to it. Basically, when the windows get saved, now I also save maximize state. I wasn't saving it before, but it was because of that visual effect being messed up. Now here, when I look at the window state that was happened on load, and I called it the was maximized state. So I added a hook, or added an effect, sorry, that if it was maximized and it hasn't yet been opened maximized and it isn't being closed currently, then we do the timeout where we say, okay, as soon as the window's fully opened, then maximize it, open it maximized, and then we'll set this as open maximized. Actually, on that note, this probably should be... No, it's good here because I don't want this to happen twice. So in the event that this hook got triggered twice, I wouldn't want this to happen twice. So rather than having this be in here, I think it's okay to have it there and just be like, don't go back into this condition. That's that explanation. This is just adding maximize to the window state. That's it, really. There wasn't much to it, honestly. Just the key thing was now it's saved, and I've added some kind of handling of that delay that was offsetting it visually. But it's not perfect by any means. Sometimes it's okay to have these not perfect solutions, I think. If you're moving closer towards the goal, I would say. Allow saving / opening maximized. And we also just went through like 4 commits there because they were also a little intermediary. That gets us... So this terminal left right, I almost don't want to do this. This is another real interim step. Basically, I'm still working on the terminal. It still doesn't do stuff like the delete key doesn't work. Backspace doesn't work with this, with the left right. Like if you go a couple things left and then press backspace, it's just going to have a little empty space there, like someone knocked out a tooth of your line. I think I'm just going to bookmark this for now, and I'm going to export this. Actually, I'm going to make this into a patch here, but I'm not going to apply this right now. I'm going to see how far we can get without applying this, because it's not where I'd like it to be. But if we did change the command interpreter again, then we're probably going to run into some headaches. Let me just double check if we have again. Is there other oh yeah, there's the weather thing. Maybe we add left and right. Maybe we do it. Yeah, let's add it. I mean, it's a step in the right direction, but you'd be surprised. Oh, right, I already exported this. You'd be surprised how hard it is with this Xterm plugin. They really don't give you a lot to work with. Like, can't you give me left and right functionality? Can't that be something that just comes with it? All right, let's apply this patch. Let's see how I did left and right. So first I had to store the ASCII codes for left and right. Basically, if you send this to the terminal, it just moves the cursor one to the left or one to the right. I now store the cursor position within the command interpreter to allow setting of it. On the terminal side, I catch the left and right keys and I set the cursor position accordingly. If you press right, it's go +1. If you press left, it's go -1. That basically explains most of this. Then we're just left with the command interpreter, the actual setting of the position here. So I store the cursor now, position. And when you run the command set command line. Wait, what's set command line? Oh, okay, it used to be called set command, and it was just a dispatch. I've done an intermediary command here called set command line. Again, doing the same thing here where you could pass a function or you could pass a string. Basically, so that whenever someone sets command, it also sets the cursor because we want to keep those in sync. So anytime the command is updated, the cursor is supposed to follow it, kind of. or go to the end of it. Although, to be honest, this isn't perfectly accurate, I would say. This needs improvement, but it's just another step in the right direction. So with set cursor position, I calculate the cursor move to make sure it's not going too far to the left or too far to the right. It's staying within its little bounds of the text. And assuming that it is, it writes that. If you say want to go to the right, then it repeats that ASCII character the amount of times that you said. So if you say +3, it'll just print that right character 3 times to the terminal. Same with left. If you say -4, it'll do the absolute of -4, which is 4, and it'll give you 4 lefts. And that's it. I switched some set commands to set command lines. I kept that export the same. That's it. So this is going to be pretty anticlimactic, but let's take a peek at it. So I type A, B, C, D, and I go left, 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 left. Nice. So I'm able to go all the way to the A. I can go right to the D, and I can start typing more. Now you see here, if I go left, left, left to the D, and then I press backspace, rather than take the E's and move them, it just made an empty space there. And then if I press enter, you see the command, it didn't understand any of that. It still thought I was on the right, and it just deleted an E as if I went backspace from this end of the cursor. So I haven't synced that stuff up yet. But it's, you know, one step at a time in this case. This is not a commit I'm super proud of, but I want to get it in the books. We have some kind of left-right abilities. Still got to fix delete. Still got to fix backspace. Still got to do autocomplete. Still got some work to do, basically. Another big bug that I noticed too was that if the terminal starts to wrap your command onto the next line, and then I press backspace, I hit a wall where the backspace doesn't just jump to the next part of the line. So the terminal is really dumb. You really have to tell it, oh, I want to delete up and then to the left or to this. It's a mess. Anyways, we've added that ability, left and right. We can now go left and right, and that's really all you should expect to be able to do with it at this point. Next up, set default for maximize state. No, I just did that. Saving in Monaco. This is kind of a cool one, and I'm going to actually add this feature that I did to another one as well. There's 2 pieces to this, it looks like. Only save on loaded URLs for Monaco. Okay, we'll slip that in at the end here of that commit. Just double check there's no others. That we already did. Add date to tinymce. We'll do that in a second. Okay, good. Let's get this patch. So for the Monaco text, my IDE my integrated development environment that I'm working on for the app, we are missing some stuff, which I'm going to apply right now. Let me just copy. So we're missing the ability to save, basically, with Monaco. Hopefully we're back here. Back in 3, 2. I think we're back now. I'm just waiting for to see my video again. For anyone keeping count, this is the 3rd time my OBS has frozen on me. I need to recheck the configuration. I got an update from it like a month ago, and I think it messed it up somehow. So let's try to get back on track, whatever the heck I was. I don't know what's causing it to freeze, or I would avoid it for sure. There we go. This still worked. So back to the code. We had just applied. We were going to talk about Monaco. So Monaco is my code editor. So if I go open this, let's say. So here's Monaco right here. And before, I basically had no way to save it. It's still a little janky, but now you'll see what I've added with my patch. So let's say I delete this P. Press backspace. So you'll see what happened is we got a little dot here, which is kind of neat. Is that where I wanted that dot? Is that how that looks? Okay, yeah, that's actually how it is in VS Code as well. Is that it actually adds that little dot to the front of the file name. So basically that just means there's unsaved changes. And now the way I've added to be able to save is if you press Control and then S. So now it's saved. So now if I close this and I open it again, you'll see it saved that, and that P is missing. That's basically all I've added. I don't have a file menu yet or anything, but I have an indicator to say there's unsaved changes via the title bar, and I have this Control S key to save those changes. On that note, Looks like there was one little line change I have to do to that before we analyze it too deeply. I'm going to do that little line change, and then we're going to go look at the lines that did change to understand them. So let's check it out. Let's check out the title first. So title I've added, so that little save character I call it, that's that little ball circle. And I already had a hook called use title that would add the file name to the title. Now I have this other piece to it where it can also show the unsaved status. So, and I also added prepend file. In addition to the append command, I've added a prepend command to put it at the front or the back. Because in the case of Monaco, I realize now, and I changed it, that it should have been prepended to start. So the name should be first. It shouldn't be like Monaco editor dash file name. It should be the other way around. And rather than make a generic command, I thought this was simple enough to just make two functions, an append and a prepend. And they just kind of put it at different positions. And the save character gets put either at the... If we append it, then the dot gets put at the end when there's unsaved changes. And if we prepend it, the dot is at the start. So that's all that changed for the title. And then the actual use Monaco part here, I added... What did I do here? So before there was just this... The model was getting created here for Monaco, create model. Now I've turned that into a function called create model here. And instead of append, I prepend now. Otherwise, not much change there. So whatever changed was in the new model here. Right, so when I do create model, I make the new model. That was like how it was before, this new model. But what I do change is I add a hook so that on did change content, I prepend the file, I update the file title again to say there is unsaved changes now. That's true. And I've also added to the editor that gets created, I add a key down handler. Does this ever get cleaned up, I wonder? This could be another issue, perhaps. Oh, I think that's this, actually. Right, so my on-key handlers, I don't currently have a good way to clean them up properly, to dispose of them. I think there is a way to do it. I think this thing returns a dispose function, but I was having trouble running it. So kind of the lazy way that I've solved it for now is that if you open more files, this handler is going to run for all of them. But I make sure that the visible open editor path is the path of the one that matters that was created with the hook. So basically, only the one that's currently open when you type will be the, or when you press Control S, it would only ever save the one that you actually have open right now. But ideally, there should only be one handler here. There shouldn't be multiple handlers looking at Control S. Anyways, that's all it does here. On the editor, on key down, if Control is clicked and S key is pressed, then prevent the default. Because if you don't prevent default, it's going to open the browser's Control S, which is going to try to save my web page. Don't want that. Then I write the file, getting the value from the text editor and overwriting the file, which already exists, of course. And then I prepend that I update the title again, no longer with the unsaved changes. That's it. So that allows me to save files in Monaco, which is a good one. And honestly, Control S is how I always save it. I never go File, Save. Sometimes I do Save All, it can be handy. But I press Control S all the time. So maybe I'm hoping other people will have a similar experience using it, where it's intuitive in that way. There's my two Monaco commits. So where are we? We did that. We did this. We did that. The next is for the tiny MCE. I thought this was kind of important to add because for my blog posts, I took the time to actually update their modified times. So if I hover over it here, the tooltips don't show up in OBS streaming, but there's a little tooltip appearing for me. And it's telling me the date modified. It says 2013 7/11 at 12:43 a.m. That is that's when I posted this blog post. So if I double click on this one here, you'll see here from opening the app, there's no way to know that this was from 2013. So all I want to do is to read the modified date and put it in the title bar here, basically. And that's what I'm going to do right here. So let's get our usual patches of the day. Copy it there, switch back to my code, do a little git apply action. And, oh, that's the wrong patch. Let me apply the correct patch. Not one that's already been ran before. And quickly going to read a message here from Joy again. As at now, can monocode have more than one file open in several tabs? Currently, no. I have a post-it note to do it, and I do know that it's very much possible. Let me see if I have in my bookmarks here for my IDE. Here it is here. So this is an example of using Monaco with multiple tabs. So you see here's the tab buttons here. So I click style, index. So you see I could have a Monaco editor that has tabs, and I could make them look more visual like how VS Code looks. So I do plan to in the future. As it is currently though, no. Currently I can just open multiple ones. So I can say open with Monaco, and I can right click and open it again with Monaco. Oh no, can I? Can't add model because it already exists. Oh, I've never had that happen before. I've never tried to open the same file twice. Let's try two other things. Open that one, and then... Oh, was that already maximized from before? Open this one. There we go. So you see two Monacos can open, but I realize now two of the same Monacos cannot open, so I'm going to make a note to fix that as well. Error occurs when opening same file twice in two Monacos. Cool. Monacos. Nice. Joy said, awesome, that'd be great. Yeah, the tabs would definitely be cool. I have a lot of things. I want to add a status bar. I wanted to add the directory listing. I wanted to add a few handy things like prettier, so people can put a JSON file in and just press one button and boom, it's formatted right away. That would be like in the bottom in the status bar, maybe just like how DevTools has a little button, which is like the JSON brackets. And when you click that, it'll try to beautify some minified code. I'd like to have that as well. But yeah, those are things for the future. Let's check out this TinyMCE update. Actually, let's just demo it now because it's already applied. So now when I open one of my blog posts, now you'll see, there we go, in the title bar here, it'll say July 11th, 2013. And I have it do like kind of a pretty print Word version rather than just numerical. Let's see how I did that. So I have a function already to get the modified date of a file. I don't rely purely on the file system for modified date for various reasons, limitations with BrowserFS. I get the stat command because I need to pass it to the get modified time. Or no, I run stat here. So the idea is here, when I load the file into TinyMCE, I get the modified date I make a new date where I run my get modified date command with the URL and then the stats. Now the thing with, I get the stats, and if in BrowserFS it's in the read-only file system, then all the stats are the same value and they're incorrect. And in that case, I read from a different JSON file where I've also exported all the information about the directories, which is why I run it through this fancy command here. And then once I've got the date, I use the datetime format command that's part of HTML5, or part of the API. I don't think it's HTML5, that's not correct, but part of something supported by the browsers. It's like a browser API. I don't know what thing you would say that's a group of, but it's a group of that. And it's got this date style called medium, which I like, which is that like JUL-11- the year. And then we get that pretty date, and then we just put it in the title here. And that's literally all I do. Got another message from Joy here. Super cool. I'm going to follow this through and through. That's cool to hear. It's I mean, I've got 48 videos, 48 streams now, 2 to 3 hours long, so you don't have to commit like that if you don't want to. Thank you though, Joe, by the way. Joy. I missed a message from Stefan here a long time ago. I don't know how that one snuck past me, but hi Stefan Wixfort. I'm sorry I didn't say hi earlier, but I don't know how your message got missed. I swear I didn't see it. He said, good morning, haven't been here for some time. How's the project going? Well, I mean, you tell me, I guess. Hopefully it's going okay. I like to hear from people that haven't seen it a while and come back. Maybe if you were here for the first episode where it was a little hello world, then it's probably come a long way. If it's from last episode, it hasn't come. I mean, it comes a lot every episode. I mean, these are the post-its of things I finish. There's like 100 there, but they're minor. I mean, this one was just adding the date to a title. So the post-it notes are like that. They're as minor as that. I mean, how many I got listed right here even. But I appreciate everybody returning. I appreciate return visitors. Okay, so we just went through this one. What's next on the list here? Delay maximize on load a bit more. We already did that. Even more delay. We did that. This is a nice one. Xterm resizing. This one I need. Basically, when the terminal opens, currently I don't have any resizing. And the resizing solution I do create, it's still not perfect. I'll show you where it's not perfect. But I'd rather have not perfect than not have the ability for someone to do any resizing. So I've made a decision there to go with the not perfect approach. So with Xterm, there is already a plugin called AutoFit. The problem is it is not sufficient for the way that I would like things to look. But let's take a look at what we got. What are we working with here? So here's the Xterm plugin. That's just a library. We'll add that. Stage that. The resize observer, I realized I had to make a little tweak here. So I have a resize observer that takes a callback, and when something resizes, it runs that callback. But the way I had the code here is it would only do it the first time. So if there's no resize observer, it would set it, but then it would never set it again unless it got, yeah, it would basically never set it again. But the callback could change. The callback might get updated and might evolve. So I had to change the code here so that when the callback changes, as long as it still exists, just keep resetting that observer and making new ones. And when set reobserver changes, it also does the unobserved part. So I don't have to worry about the cleanup in this case. At least I haven't noticed an issue with that. For the terminal, I ended up having to change the initial positions slightly to work with the resizability in the AutoFit plugin. I was able to delete the allow resizing false rule. I've decided to maintain aspect ratio for the terminal rather than let anyone just do whatever. Because one other weird thing I noticed with the AutoFit plugin is that if you resize in the horizontal plane, it does not update. But if you resize in the vertical, it would update every time. So if I lock aspect ratio, basically any resize is going to give you an X and a Y change. So that just was a solution. And also the aspect ratio is for the most part nice. So I was okay with that. The status bar, what did I change here? Oh, yes. So the resize observers, now that the callback can change each time, I had to make sure that the callbacks are being memoized so they don't change if they don't need to. In this case, this one never needs to change because it doesn't depend on anything. So this makes sure that that stays a single and then doesn't update again. As far as the types, now that I'm importing that fit add-on, the Xterm fit add-on, it also adds something to the window object. So I had to declare that. It kind of adds this weird, it adds fit add-on, and then within that, there's another fit add-on, and then that's a constructor. The iTerminal add-on type was already part of Xterm that I had, plus the fit command, which is part of the fit add-on. The styling, this is because now with AutoFit, their scroll bars are visible, and I've actually realized I like the scroll bars visible in the terminal because they are visible on Windows, but I needed to use my custom scroll bars. I have custom scroll bars in my app to have a different visual style to match the dark view. So we'll use those. And the config, I add the AutoFit config. And then finally, the meat of the change here. We keep track of the fit add-on when it's loaded. I made an AutoFit command that's only changes when the fit add-on changes, called AutoFit, that runs the AutoFit. And basically, we just have a little thing here when this effect starts up, that if the fit add-on is properly loaded, we instantiate it by making a new constructor one. And then we pass it to the terminal as one of their add-ons. That's a feature they already have. And then we do open like we were already doing. And then after it opens, we need to run an initial fit. We have to run the first fit, and then we set the fit command for subsequent fits. And subsequently, we have the resize observer. So whenever it resizes the container, it runs that AutoFit command, which does the same fit as this initial fit does. And if for some reason the fit add-on doesn't work, then it just opens the terminal without doing this. Otherwise, you have to run fit right after you open the terminal to get it to fit properly. Did I say the word fit enough times there? I hope so, because I'm giving me a headache even saying it. Let's see how it looks. Go to the browser, open up a terminal, and see what we get. terminal. There we go. So now we have a black scroll bar here. And now if I resize, you see it resizes with me. But you see here that it's not perfect. You see that there it kind of shoots in. It's a little messy. It's not ideal. But basically it's because of this rows and cols concept where it resizes in little like spaces of like, once you got 8 pixels, okay, now you've got a new row. So now I'll move over. Or now you move down enough, now you've gone 16 down, now I have enough room for a column. So now I'll resize again. So in between those resizes, if you've only gone 15 pixels and you need to go 16 for a new row, then you're going to get this little 15 pixels of space. And I haven't found the perfect way yet to reconcile that. The command prompt has a solution, but I haven't been able to perfectly make it work in CSS. And I think I've got a note on the board to make that a little bit better. But let's actually add it to the stream notes also. Make the terminal resize visual more smooth. Could be a little less jarring. Otherwise, though, it's done. So let's commit that. Another one bites the dust. Let's move on. Oh, we're down to the last 2 days of commits here. The 26th, which was actually my birthday. So happy birthday, me. 36 now. So yeah, on my birthday, I also did programming because I enjoy it. Let's see what I did that day. Pretty much do it every evening, honestly. It's just something to do. It keeps me busy. It's like knitting. It's just fun for me. What was this one? Hide. Oh, this is a cool one. So if we go to the start menu here, you see I had this effect here. So you see the scroll bar is this like one little pixel thing here. You can't see it, but if you see to the left of my cursor, there's like one little line here. And when I hover over, then it becomes a full-on scroll bar. That's not bad. That's nice. But the way Windows actually does it is there's no scroll bar, and then when you move your mouse over, that's when you get the one-line scroll bar, and then the full scroll bar you only get when you hover over this last little bit. Now there's a few ways to do it, but thank you, Joy. I got a happy birthday from Joy. Much appreciated. Thank you. Thank you. So there's some other approaches that this can be done with. And also, this still isn't as smooth as I would like, because when you move your mouse to where the scroll bar appears, it just shoots in place. And that's because transitioning the scroll bar CSS effect is not easy and doesn't typically work in the browser, as far as I've seen. Okay, did I download this patch? No, I haven't yet. Let's get this patch. And let's apply it. Hit apply this patch like so. And let's see what changed here. Right, so I've also made a global here. Instead of doing 17, the default scroll bar width is 17. Because I use it in a few places. I use it here. Same thing here. I use it here. Here I use a different one. Here for the start menu, I want it to be 13 when it's visible. So this one is 13. And now what I've changed here is that by default, it's nothing. So by default, you don't even see the scroll bar. When you hover, then it becomes the 1 pixel line. But then when we have this other variable called show scrolling, basically to show the scrolling bar. So when the styled component gets that prop as true, then the scroll bar appears. So now I've got some JavaScript that'll decide when the scroll bar should appear. And it'll pass this prop basically. That'll either be the 13 pixels wide or it'll be the 1 pixel wide. And then the final piece is the JavaScript piece. And this is kind of like, there's always a way to do something, you know? Like at some point, if the CSS and you can't, I can make a content box overlap and then I could have that hover effect that could apply to the parent. You can get all sorts of crazy stuff, but at some point you could just say, you know, I'm going to JavaScript this problem out. And that's kind of what I ended up doing here. So the way that I've JavaScript the problem out is basically I just added a mouse move effect to the start menu itself that says, hey, if your mouse goes over to that area where I want things to show, then set this prop to true, and then that'll make that happen. So here's the code for it here. And this is, where is this running? Right, so on mouse move, any mouse movement over that container, run this function. And what this function does is it checks the width of the container, the width of the start menu, and says if the cursor is greater than the width minus the scroll bar width, the default scroll bar width. Oh, that's actually wrong here. So the default scroll bar width is not what I want in this case. I want the start menu scroll bar width because we're talking about the start menu here. So I should probably be exporting this actually. That's a little mistake I didn't notice. So we'll export this. And we only want it when it's 13 pixels in for that to happen. So let's get rid of this one, and instead we'll use this one and see if it knows where that is. It does. Nice, there we go. Right, so yeah, there's the width of the start menu minus the scroll bar width. So as soon as the cursor goes beyond that, well, OBS has failed me once again, unfortunately. I'm sorry to keep coming and going on everybody. It's very disappointing, and for everyone involved, I'm sure. I'm back again. We're almost at 3 hours, by the way. The OBS froze on me again. So if we're almost at 3 hours and it's froze 3 times, I guess it freezes every hour. So let's say I got an hour left before my next freeze here. And let's just move on. Put this stuff back. I must be doing something wrong, or I think my video card crashed earlier today and I didn't restart my computer. It's possible that's part of the culprit here. Anyways, where were we again? So I wanted to demo the hiding of the scroll bar. So we open the start menu. You see now there's no scroll bar. And if I see now when I go over here, now you see that one scroll bar line appears. And then when I get close to the scroll bar, okay, I was expecting something to appear. That part didn't work. What happened here? Is it because of that change I did? Maybe that 17 thing? But this is 13. Really? Huh. Well, now I'm confused what I changed. What did I break? This is just constant stuff. I exported this. I wonder if... Does it not like that? What if I just change this one last piece to be how it was a second ago? I just can't imagine that making any difference, honestly. Yeah, I'm really a little flabbergasted on that one, as nobody says ever. Let's use this default one actually, because I actually did like that it was a little bit close to it. Like as you get like so what was it, 17 versus 13? So when you get 4 pixels close to it, it appears. That's okay with me actually, honestly. Even if it is 13, let's just make it work. Okay, now it's working. I don't know what changed there. Maybe you just can't export the way I was exporting. I don't know. Anyways, this is how I wanted it to work. So you see when the cursor gets close, the status bar appears. I like that. I wish it would transition. Maybe we'll work on that. But I like this effect. So the scroll bar becomes like a very subtle thing. So when you're over here, you don't even see it. You move your mouse over, you go, oh, okay, there's a scroll bar there. But then when you want to do some fine grained stuff, you move your mouse close, it's like, oh, okay, it just got bigger all by itself. Nice. So that was a nice little transition effect once it worked. Once we got past all the OBS crashes. Let's commit another one here. I don't know how many more we got left today. I feel like I've gone through so many. I guess when you count the OBS crashes, it feels longer. Right. Well, we're close to the bottom of it anyways here, and some of these I've already done, so let's see what's next. Add the OS stream YouTube videos. Nice, this is a simple one. So I made that folder called Make an OS Project. That's my playlist for the videos you're watching right now, and I basically just made a shortcut for every one where I imported the comment. And I made a batch script to do this. I don't really want to walk through it right now, but it's just your typical script. It's not part of the repo. It's just an automated process I did to create these files. If you're interested in that, maybe we can do that one day, but it's a pretty messy script. It's just something I threw together. So here's all those files, pretty big. They're all just a bunch of shortcuts. But now I can show you that thumbnail preview thing I wanted to show earlier. Oh, we have to run the file system reader. Yarn build fs. It needs to rebuild the file system. There we go. I'm going to clear this too. Go into the documents. Oh wait, it's not in documents. It's in videos. Here we go. Make an OS. So now, there we go. Now we can see all my various shirts that I've been wearing for the last 47, 48 episodes here. Well, there's 47, and there's also one where I demoed everything. If we see here, we can see, yeah, you can kind of see all my different shirts that I've had over the past little while. I don't like that when I zoomed in here, the scroll bar didn't appear. Scroll bar didn't appear there. Here it appears, but the things go over to the bottom. That's not supposed to happen. There we go. Oh, that's just a glitch, I guess, with... Yeah, that's just a glitch with maximizing and then zooming. I don't know what to do about that. People just shouldn't mess with zoom on my website then, I guess. Don't zoom. Anyways, now we have this whole directory. So these are all just links to YouTube videos. So if you click one of these, it'll open in YouTube, which is kind of neat. And then you can watch me watching me. Very Matrixy, I guess, or Inception, something like that. All right, let's commit that one. Added my OS stream YouTube video shortcuts to the repo. I didn't put the word shortcut there. Git ignore, I had to add it to the git ignore list too so that it didn't ignore that. Let's commit these 20, let's push these 29 changes that we already got in case they explode. Something else crashes. Joy says, that's neat. As soon as the cursor goes beyond that. Right, yes, sorry. There's two messages. I missed your message earlier. Yeah, the cursor goes beyond that point for the start menu, it appears. And then, hopefully you're talking about those shortcut links are neat. Yeah, it's kind of neat. They're all in there now. Next up, don't need to export this. Oh, that sounds minor. Yeah, that's a minor one. That's not even... I hate not doing things just because they're so quick. But at the same time, yeah, this just didn't need to be exported. It's not being used. It's being used only in one place internally. So, pretty minor change, though. Don't export that. There, did it really quick. I do like to get these in because it's like every little improvement, you know, leave the code better than you found it kind of thing. But sometimes just to keep the commits separate, like I wouldn't want to do this change and then do another change and sneak it in because then I'm not going to remember when I look at my commit messages, you know, change something in the start menu and all of a sudden it's like I'm removing an export. It's like, why did I need that? And sometimes it turns out I did need it and I think I didn't need it. That's why I'm very clear now. I have to separate these commits because after the fact, when I come back, I'm not going to remember every little piece necessarily. So YouTube shortcuts are dynamic icons. Yes, that's true. That's another piece I needed to add here because it wasn't treating the YouTube icons as like a dynamic icon. And that meant it was using that icon for the, if you see here, wait, where'd it go? Videos. If we open one here, open this one, you see the icon here on the on the file itself is the little picture. And same here. That I don't want. That's too small for a preview. So in that case, I actually want it to use the original icon of just the player. So we'll just do that. That's a minor one too. Nope, that's not what this is. Did I? Yeah, I got the patch. Here we go. So I basically just added one little check that when it's trying to decide if the icon is dynamic or not, that yes, YouTube icons are also dynamic. And if it's dynamic, then it doesn't use it as the picture icon, basically. So to say that it is dynamic is to say don't use it in that one scenario. Let's test it out here. There we go. Now it's the VLC icon at the top and the bottom here. But the shortcut is the other one. Okay, that's another one done. That was this. So here I added weather. I think this was because I was just looking through random repos and I found a mention of this one weather thing that happened to be free to use. This here, this wttr.in. They've really gone out of their way to allow me to use this weather thing, and it's in like a terminal format, and it'll even send me the ASCII code. I thought, hey, you know, if it's going to go that hardcore to make this possible, let's integrate it. Let's use it. This is kind of using an open weather service. That's another key part of my app is that I'm not going to have a backend, you know? I don't have a backend other than static files. So any kind of cool services or things that get added have to come from, I have to find a way for someone who visits my site with what code I give them, they have to be able to use that to communicate with the outside world within the confines of whatever the browser allows. So what did I have to change here to make this one possible? To add weather, I had to change all this stuff? Why is that? Let's see. Convert new lines. Oh, right. I made this that generic command that I was mentioning earlier. So this convert new line command, this is just because several times I had to do this where I had to turn these RNs to Ns and NRN, whatever these things. I had to tweak the new lines basically. So I made a little function to do that now because I was doing it in several places. So here in Python I was doing it. That's cleaner. Here in the load wapm thing I was doing it. That's cleaner now. And then here for weather, I also needed it. So I added the weather helper, weather forecast service. It also has an alias of WTTR because that's the service itself. I decided let's have their alias. And all it really does is it just does a fetch command with these little flags, this 1NAF. And there's an API somewhere that tells you which flags are which. Basically, this is just today's weather, not too wide, just to fit in the terminal in ASCII format, the end. And this can communicate through cores, so my hosted website is able to call this URL without any cross-origin site errors. And then it just takes the response and dumps it out. That's all it needs to do. So let's check it out. Terminal weather. There we go. There's the weather in our terminal. Weather report for Richmond, Canada. Yeah, I'm in Richmond. Spoiler alert. So this will just be based on your IP whenever you request from the URL. And yeah, it shows the terminal with color and everything, which I thought was kind of cool. WTTR is the alias, so that one works too. And in the future, I can expand on that if I want to. But it was another little fun one. So added weather to the terminal. And just in general, there's like now I have a weather service that I could do other things with. I mean, it's not in a hook or service form. It's very embedded in the terminal right now, but it's the base for an idea, you know? If all of a sudden down the line I wanted to have that weather bar that they always have in the taskbar nowadays, this could be part of it, you know? If I wanted to. Oh, did I not note that I added the weather service? Jeez, I got to add those to my show notes. I just did. Tweaks to the help output. Oh, yeah? Okay. These are some minor tweaks. I think this tweak actually requires a secondary tweak, but let's just do it. This is just, you know, the terminal's always evolving. I decided to change some very minor little pieces of it basically here. Let's take a peek, take a quick little look at what are the little minor changes. I know they were minor. So in help, I just added a new line after aliases. That's about as minor as it gets. And then here I changed a few words because some of them were going onto second lines and it just made the help look a little gross with the default width. So I've just shrunk a few things to kind of make it a bit more succinct what they do. And I also got rid of the reboot command because I just don't like the reboot command actually. On that note, I wanted to get rid of it here too. That was the other piece I needed to do. So there's no reboot, there's just restart and shutdown. Okay, tweaks to terminal help output. There we go. Wasn't just help, I guess. I did remove reboot, but hardly worth mentioning, I feel. Even though I was just preaching about not slipping things in. Slipping in sneaky commits. Always show thin scroll on mobile. Right, this is another one. Because mobile doesn't have a hover effect, because your mouse, you can't hover with your hand. It just can detect you hovering your finger. Now that I have that scroll bar that doesn't show unless you hover, I need on mobile for it to always show. And in mobile, it only ever shows the line is what I'm going to have. So let's apply that one. There we go. And let's see what I had to do. So I made a little CSS snippet called thin scroll bars. And I took it out of here. So I already had the code here for these thin scroll bars, basically. And I took that code out and made it this generic thing. Where, just like before, where if it's show scrolling, then show the 13 pixel one, otherwise show the 1 pixel one. And in this case, show scrolling will always be false because mouse move is not detected on a mobile device because there's no mouse. And then what I did, so I say on hover is the thin scroll bars, but if the media hover has none, so this is like a CSS way of detecting, is the thing I'm loading, does it even have the support for hover? And if it doesn't, then we always use thin scroll bars. And I also had to do this little track margin thing because I noticed that on mobile, it doesn't display the up and down buttons. So there's like little spacers that should be there that aren't there on mobile. So this basically adds those spacers back with the same height of those little buttons that are missing, just to keep it consistent. Anyways, that's all that needed to happen there, so we won't even get too far into that, or even, let's not even demo it, honestly. You can imagine what it looked like before, but on mobile. That's it. Got a happy birthday here from Bio. Thank you very much. Yeah, it was just a couple days ago, my birthday. 2 days ago now, I guess. It's Sunday. Oh, it's midnight now. Okay, so I guess it's still Saturday, but I've been doing this 3 hours and 6 minutes now, so we're already into the next day. Well, I'm almost done. Got just a couple things left. What were they here? Tweaks to help output. I did that. Always show thin scroll bar. Right. This was another thing here, just a simple one. So for I have git in the terminal as well, but if my git URL ends in .git, it was adding that to the name of the folder that it created, and that's just not really what I wanted. I want the folder that gets created to be the same name as the repo. And I'll show you what I'm talking about here, in case anyone's like, what do you mean running git on your page? Because it sounds kind of crazy. Got an awesome from Bio. Thank you very much, sir. So here's me replacing that git. So we'll commit that. I know that works. And then I'm going to demo it now. Let's go to a generic repo. What's a good repo? Let's go to one of my generic repos. Do I have any tiny ones? Repositories. Simple web app. That sounds simple. Actually, that looks bigger than I expected it to be. Coding. I don't know what that is. Okay, so we say code. We copy this. So you see this ends in .git. So if I go to my app now and I open up the terminal, I cd to the desktop and I enter and I go git clone. There we go. So cloning into coding. So you see now it made a coding folder and it clones the whole repo, but it kept it proper where it says coding instead of coding.git I was getting before. Because there are some git URLs that don't end in .git, but now it also, specifically for .git, I don't want it to show like that. Oh, did I just delete it? I didn't add this to my show notes. So sloppy. Let me copy this for my slow notes. Feels like slow notes, taking so long to do this. Actually, this is a pretty normal stream nowadays. I feel like I have so many commits that I'm just doing too many commits. Maybe that's the problem. So this little debounce is something that I've decided is somewhat useful. Basically, let me show an example here on the videos. Got a message here from Maksamam Mahdi Ali saying hello from Uzbekistan. Wow, cool. Hey, hello. Getting some interesting people here. I had someone from Ghana, from Uzbekistan. I'm surprised the people that are viewing this. It's pretty cool. I'm up here in Canada, by the way. Nice to meet you. So let's see here. So the delay. So here's the selection thing. And you can see here me selecting. If I do it fast, so you see it's not even keeping up with my cursor, basically. Oh, and it just flooded some kind of... What did it do here? This is YouTube being silly. Ignore that. But you see here it's being slow, especially when I'm trying to select icons. It's just chugging along. And what I figured out it is basically I'm running the update command way too often. So it just freezes. And there's various ways to handle that. And the way that I've kind of decided as I don't know if it's a temporary solution, but the solution I've at least decided is that I'm only going to allow it to update 60 times a second maximum. Got a nice to meet you from Joy and from Mux as well. Thanks. Nice to meet you guys. Yeah. I didn't get one from Mux, but nice to meet everybody. Hello from everybody. Okay. So let's see how I did debounce here. This is where it was handling that selection and doing the calculation to say, is my square colliding with another square, and should that be considered selected now? Basically, here's the calculation happening here. On mouse move, whenever the mouse moves, before I was doing a dispatch and setting a new size for that box. Instead, what I've decided to do is I create this debounce timer where if there's no debounce timer, set the size, and then as soon as you set the size, we're going to make a debounce timer that says the next time, basically all it does is just starts a timer for the debounce time, and when the timer's up, it clears debounce time. So if this gets triggered when the timer is still running, then it won't do the set size and it won't make a new timer. But then as soon as this timer finishes, and clears itself, then it can come back in here. And the timer is just your typical set timeout, typical window timeout command. I've set the debounce time to be the milliseconds, 1,000 milliseconds divided by FPS. So 60. I think that gets you like 16. So every 16 milliseconds, it can do an update. And that will allow it to do 60 of them in 1,000 milliseconds, which is like 60 per second, I guess. And that's the basic idea of it. And now you'll see here the big difference here. So now you see my selection's completely smooth. And I can select the folders, and it's just much less skippy. And it's still not quite as smooth there when it's getting the files. But when it's down here, it's butter smooth now compared to before where it was like, you know? So that's many times improved, I would say. Maybe not many times, but improved enough for me. It's not necessarily the ideal long-term solution because it's like, could there not have been a better way to handle flooding? But it's a little tricky when mouse movement is involved because every pixel is like a mouse movement. So you can, just going from here to here can be 100 mouse movements, 1,000 even. And it's just, you don't need necessarily those updates. Like if just 60 times a second you show that's going to be enough for the human eye versus updating 1,000 times a second. And if you only got a 60 hertz screen, you know, I mean, most people don't have over 100 hertz screens, I would say. 120. Okay, we're almost done here. Transfer dialog. I think I did that one too, right? We've already gone through the transfer dialog. Allow worker URLs. We'll do this one really quick. This is part of me working on having the file system. Oops. I want to have the file system run in a worker thread. And I'm getting close, but I haven't gotten there yet. It still wasn't quite working. It was a little bit buggy. So I haven't done it yet, but I did do one improvement to the use worker hook that we can apply quickly before we get to that final icon cache change. So let's just apply that quick because it's a really minor one. Allow worker URLs or functions. So the use worker hook before, it would always take a function here as the worker function, like a literal JavaScript function, and it would convert that into a file basically that it would use as the worker. But I'm also going to allow a string that's a path to the file function. So now it can just be two different ways, either a string to the file or the actual function. And the reason I do the string to a file is because for the file system method, I need to load the worker from a real file and not from a blob. Because if I load it from a blob URL, it messes up relative paths when I'm trying to do fetch. And it just becomes a whole headache and a whole thing that I didn't know about for worker threads. So I'm still learning the worker thread one. Anyways, that's just a feature update. Nothing I can demo there, but that's add functionality to the hook. And finally, we get to the icon cache. And I'm pretty happy about this one because I've actually been trying to do this for a while and I've kind of hummed and hawed about the right way to do it. And I'm not sure this is the right way to do it the way I have it now, but at least I've got a way that's done now. And before I apply this, I want to show you the before and after. I'm going to get one click away from doing it here though. Now let's jump back to the demo here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a video. So this is a video here, and as an example, this one here is 300 megabytes. And to create that little thumbnail, it has to load basically the whole file. I mean, I don't know if quite it has to. For some pictures, for sure it does. For the picture thumbnails that I make, it loads the whole file. Let me get a picture thumbnail too as an example. It'll be a bit smaller, but let's say my wallpaper here. There we go. So that wallpaper, that's a 5 megabyte picture. And if I refresh the page, you'll see that those two icons, they start as the generic, and then slowly they update to the thumbnail after it loads the thumbnail. You see, I do it again, it'll do it again. Generic, and then slowly loads the thumbnail. So to make those thumbnails every time, it's having to re-grab the file that you dragged in from IndexedDB. It all is local, so it's fast, but it's not so fast. Like, let's say for that video one, it has to get the whole video, puts it in a video element, jumps to a time frame, takes a screenshot of that canvas, and then converts that into an image, and then creates a blob URL, and then loads that in there every time. And basically, I wanted to not do that. I wanted to have an icon cache. And one other reason why it will be useful is, let's say, in cases where... I'm trying to think of some good examples. I mean, any files that I decide to add... Oh, here's some good examples in like pictures right here. Where's pictures? It's a really good example, actually. Pictures, blog. Here we go. This blog. You see this slow working, blah, 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 taking forever. There we go. So that took all my blog photos and had to read every one of them. So these are big photos, actually. These, if I inspect one of these, let's say this one here, it'll say, so it's displaying at 48 by 48, but it's a 150 by 150 image. And that's a thumbnail one. Let me find one that's not a thumbnail image. So these are the thumbnails, actually. The full-size ones are in a whole other folder. Let me open the full-size. This is even bigger. You see, this is slow. This is having to load all those icons and make all of them into thumbnails. Similar to Windows, honestly. Windows is a little slow at doing this too. But basically, I want to avoid that because if those files had been hosted on my server and someone visited my site, it was going to have to download every one of those just to make those images. And if you see, let me inspect one of them here. So this one here is being displayed at 48 by 48, but it's 640 by 480. So if we look at the network tab, it just downloaded like 30 megabytes of stuff to make that happen. So what I want to do is anytime you load a new file, it's going to have to do that process of making the icon, however it does it, by reading the whole file, whatever it happens to be. But then once it has that icon, it's going to save that. And the next time you want to look at that file, it's going to use that saved icon rather than remake the thing again. And in the case of this, where I'm serving the files, I'm going to, now that I have this icon cache mechanism, I'm going to pre-do all this before I host the sites publicly. So if someone goes into this folder, rather than have it download every icon, I'm going to already have made those icons too, and also include those. So when you go to this folder, my app is going to tell you, hey, if you wanted the icon, it's over here. Rather than, oh, you want the icon? Open up the picture and just use that picture. So that's the gist of it. Let's try it out here then. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, oh man, this is a good example, these two folders. Let's try them now. So I'm going to apply the patch. That's the first thing I got to do. And before we go any further, let's just go right into the code now. It's pretty mad. I think we need to clear the cache because it changed the mechanism of how the session saves. There we go. So we got it back to normal. Now let's try here. So we open up again. We go to documents again. Or no, pictures. Blog. So the first time it's going to be slow. Okay, so it's making all of these. Now, presumably, assuming my icon cache thing worked. Looks like it didn't. What happened here? Okay. It might have worked. I'm going to ignore this error for a second, and let's do a refresh now. I think this is a bug in icon cache. If you see, the icon cache is the thing I just did. It's like today. Yeah, I did that today, so it's not perfect yet. But let's just see if it did any of it here. So now we go into users, temp, icon cache. So it did make an icon cache of 29 of the files, but it looks like it had some kind of issue. So if we go into the pictures now, I think it probably didn't work as good as I expected it to. Honestly, I never tried it with this many files. There might be something, there might be some race condition stuff going on. Yeah, it's like way more broken this way now. I don't think this is going to work. We're going to get a bunch of console log errors when it finally decides to fail on me. Yeah, that did not work as expected. Tell you what. The icon cache is a big change too, so I'm hesitant. I'm going to try to demo it, but I don't know if I'm going to commit this because it's not working as expected now that I actually try to do some other stuff. Let's just try with that video again though, and I'll show you how much quicker the video is. So you see here the video slow this time, generating the icon. It's got it. Now if I refresh, boom, right away. No more regenerating. So that's the dream. That's what I was hoping to have in that other folder, but I think there were too many files in there and it got out of hand. But it is a good example of this one here. So this file now is in the icon cache. If we clear this completely, and then I drag that file on again, and now I go to the users. See, it's already, yeah, there's other issues happening here that are ticking me off. It's complaining about that again. Ignoring that for a second, let's just see if it did create the file. Oh, it's like the folder didn't get made, or what happened? Some kind of race condition here. Well, you saw visually that it kind of worked. It was definitely faster, but at the same time, I'm not too happy with this commit now. A little too buggy. Yeah, let's forget this one for now. I'm going to bookmark this one as well. So I've made a bookmark of those 2 commits. What was the other commit actually that I bookmarked? I don't even remember. The terminal left, right. Oh, I ended up doing that in the end. So it was really only the icon cache that I had to. Yeah, this still needs a little bit of work. But stepping back from that, I think we've accomplished a lot today. Let's get into the code and revert this patch, this failure of a patch, I would call it. Report this spammer again for the heck of it, for whatever use it does. So we're gonna undo that. Otherwise, we did quite a bit today. I'm gonna actually move this added dev tools thing to the apps list that I sometimes create when I actually add an app. Call it dev tools. Yeah, other than that, we did a lot of tweaks, a lot of improvements. I think that's it. So thank you for tuning in for my 3 OBS crashes during the stream, for the dev tools, the terminal changes, all the little stuff that we went through together, for all the chats from the people from, what was it, from Uzbekistan and Ghana and all the other cool places. Really appreciate you checking out my video. If you liked it, please throw me a like. If you want to motivate me, you want to keep track of what I'm up to, please subscribe. Other than that, thanks for tuning in, and see you guys in the next one. Guys and girls, goodbye.